أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dearly respected elders, brothers and sisters, Maulana Asad Jafri, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of the Mahdi Youth Society, I'd like to welcome you all to the Al-Mahdi Youth's Imam Ali Conference. Thank you all for joining us on this auspicious occasion. My name is Zain Razvi, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for the night. And I wanted to take a minute to thank the Mahdi Youth Society for granting me the honor and the privilege, specifically Brother Ashar Sayyed, to be your host tonight. Jazakallah. We're all gathered to celebrate and remember the birth of a man who was the most distinguished personality of Islam after the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He's widely known as the commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and his entire life was dedicated to the struggle of the advancement of Islam. Much can be said about the life, character, and attributes of Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was unmatched in the battlefield and in faith and purity. He was a beacon of light and justice and a helping hand for the needy. Born on the 13th day of Rajab inside the holy Kaaba in Mecca, Imam Ali has been attributed a number of titles, some of them being Asadullah, the Lion of God, Haidar, the brave-hearted, Abu Turab, the father of dust, and Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful. He was martyred at the age of 63 after a period of imamat of 29 years and is buried in Najaf, Iraq. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. O God, love those who love him, detest those who detest him, and turn the truth with him, whichever way he turns. These were the words of the Holy Prophet Muhammad on the day of Ghadir. Following the announcement, people proceeded to congratulate their divinely appointed leader. Imam Ali was the disciple who emanated wisdom, faith, and valor from every corner of his being. As commander of the faithful, he was the closest in resemblance to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. In the path of justice, Imam Ali's bravery was legendary. This was the personality of the commander of the faithful. This program will aim to shine a light on just a few qualities of the Imam and how we can strive to embody and implement them in our own day-to-day lives. Tonight's program will be structured as follows. So we will begin with a Quran recitation by Brother Ashar Sayyed, and our first poetry series featuring our poets, Brother Abbas Jafri, Brother Ali Rizvi, Sister Alize Jafri, and Brother Mikhail Naqvi. A panel discussion focused on family life, embodying the compassion of Imam Ali alayhi salam, featuring panelists Sister Safiya Rizvi and Maulana Sayyid Asad Jafri. We'll then take a 15-minute snack break in which refreshments will be served. And when we return, our second poetry series will begin, featuring our poets Brother Ali Naqvi, Sister Masume, and Brother Hamoud Mubarak. A second panel discussion focused on exemplifying the qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam in business, featuring panelists Brother Siraj Ali, Brother Qasim Abbas, and Brother Rahman Abedi. And our moderator will be Brother Ali Hirji. A closing address, which will take place at that time, and closing words from the Mahdi Youth Society President, Brother Ashar Sayyed. We'll close off the poetry with Brother Wahid Farashahi, and at the end, we'll end with dinner. So as you can all see, we've got a busy night ahead. So let's begin by inviting Brother Ashar Sayyed to start us off with a Quran recitation. Let's invite him up with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالمؤريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بؤثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم. الله.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Brother Asher, for that beautiful recitation. Before we begin our first poetry series, I'd like to take a moment and share a hadith from our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. The Holy Prophet has said, whoever wishes to see Adam in his knowledge, Nuh in his piety, Ibrahim in his patience, Musa in his strength, and Isa in his worship and devotion, should look at Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. It is difficult to sum up the qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam in just a few words, but these next few minutes will allow us to remember some of the many qualities and values that Imam Ali alayhi salam manifested. Let's start by calling our first poet, Brother Abbas Jafri, and please let's invite him up with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Golden dreams have confiscated my mind as I slumber. Golden dreams have confiscated my mind as I slumber. I see lovers flock towards a dome. Peacefully I wonder, am I inside paradise? Rubbing my eyes as sight is rough. An angel says, yes, you are, but here we call it Najaf. Suddenly I realize it's Amirul Mu'mineen. I'm in front of my master, Ya Imamul Muttaqeen. Qarrar, Safdar, Ghazanfar, Ya'sub ad-Din, Murtaza. What words can I say in front of the lion of Allah? The angel calms me down, says, do not worry about your flaw. For whom you are in front of, he is your mushkil kusha. So in front of perfection, the master of life and death, I muster up the courage and speak with my every breath. As you entered in the Kaaba with its walls torn apart, Ya Ali, please open the walls and enter in my heart. But don't leave after 3 days and stay in it forever. Stitch Ya Ali on my heart so my ties never sever. You're Ali, you are high, but what is your elevation? You are Ali, you are high, but what is your elevation? With the attributes of God, you are still in prostration. When your father was the lion and you were just a cub, the protection he would be when the prophet was the hub. You remind everyone of his strength with no lie, no fib. You remind everyone of his strength with no lie, no fib. That's why we always say Ali ibn Abi Talib. What was stronger than his strength? His faith he had for his Lord. What was stronger than his strength? His faith he had for his Lord. He raised you, so your title, Kulle Iman's your reward. And the axis of the world you can flip within a beat. The axis of the world you can flip within a beat. So when you run in battle, the dust would twirl at your feet. Give me Zulfiqar strength to fight the madhab of the time, so that onlookers know that your followers are sublime. Let me run like a lion, let me pounce like a panther, but kill them with my kindness, for akhlaq has no answer. With every dua that's heard, one result I want to see. With every dua that's heard, one result I want to see. I try my best, so please show somehow you are pleased with me. And for my loving elders, my fathers and my mothers, all my children and my friends, my sisters and my brothers, we make mistakes, we have sins. Strengthen our immunity. We make mistakes, we have sins. Strengthen our immunity. I pray for the unity here in my community. I suddenly awaken, for it wasn't just a dream. I suddenly awaken, for it wasn't just a dream. As I was there recently, not long enough it may seem. I stood there with my heart out, with tears flowing, but I think the duration was the same. It takes my eyes to blink. We love our master, we think bib. We love our master, we think big in hyperbole. We love our master, we think big in hyperbole, but we need our dreams to help us get through reality. The du'as for all of you were real, and hope does exist. The du'as for all of you were real, and hope does exist. So if you feel as though you're weak, then I leave you with this. When the world pushes you down and you feel you've had enough, when the world pushes you down and you feel you've had enough, get up while saying Ya Ali with your eyes towards Najaf. Ya Ali. When the world pushes you down and you feel you've had enough, get up while saying Ya Ali with your eyes towards Najaf, for lifting you on your feet since he lifts the door of Khaybar. For lifting you on your feet since he lifts the door of Khaybar is the simplest of tasks, whose mother named him Haydar. By Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Jazakallah, Brother Abbas. That was very inspiring and beautiful poetry that you had shared with us tonight. Brother Abbas said, with the attributes of Allah, you are in prostration. And again, it speaks to the innumerable attributes that Mawla Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi afdalu salatu wasalam had for us to learn from and to take lesson from. Next on our list of poets for tonight is Brother Ali Rizvi. Please welcome Brother Ali Rizvi with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Please say salawat. Before beginning, I would like to congratulate you all on the wiladat of our first and holy Imam Ali alayhi salam. Please say salawat. The poetry I'll be reciting today is written by Nouri Sardar. It's called Ali, my first Imam. Ali, my first Imam. In my eyes, it's written, no doubt and no division. Ali's my first Imam. The way the world defines me, a follower of Ali, Ali's my first Imam. Following Ali by God isn't a choice, it's a thirst. Thirsty we become when they say fourth, we answer, he's first. Glory to the one who doesn't let hearts from his love burst. Glory to he who gave us his love from first breath till last. Glory be to the Lord who placed a heavenly sword firmly in Ali's palm. With pride this sword we carry, a follower of Ali. Ali's my first Imam. Even if a sword reaches my neck and my life's taken, I'll only follow he who by God's own hand was chosen. Eyes are windows to the soul, and in mine you see written, I'm a Shia, son of Shia, Shia my children. Ali in allegiance, Shi'i in my existence, a pride that none can harm, written with my destiny, a follower of Ali, Ali's my first Imam. Our belief in Ali never dies and never burns out. It's not even choice, it's in our blood, with no ounce of doubt. He represents us, and yet his greatness few know about. What sprinkles in us overflows in him, even in drought. An image in our eyes, and history never lies. Muhammad raised his arm. I was taught my history. A follower of Ali, Ali's my first Imam. God made us obedient to Him, with us He designed. You'll find us whenever Ali and his children you find. Even if we find ourselves against the whole of mankind, we hear His name if we're deaf and see His name if we're blind. God told our destiny, salute the name of Ali, the greatest type of charm created intimately. A follower of Ali, Ali's my first Imam. It's not just Muhammad or Ali, it's their family. They father the orphan and they look after the lonely. They're not just a household of gold, they're divine and holy. We've seen miracles by crying out, help us, O Ali. Ali brings miracles, beats his name and syllables. The pulse in our forearm, for Muhammad's family, a follower of Ali, Ali's my first Imam. To the knowing you as first, after Muhammad we were born. When God first created us, He'd see for Hussein we'd mourn. We made two promises, and from neither can we be torn. We've sworn to follow you, and to mourn your son we have sworn. The mourning of your son, like following you, is done. A weapon none disarm, Haydari and Husseini, father of Ali. Ali's my first Imam. Please say salawat.
Jazakallah, Brother Ali Rizvi. Thank you so much for that beautiful recitation. Brother Ali had mentioned that following Ali is not a choice, it's a thirst. And again, it speaks to the fact that as lovers of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salam, we thirst for that knowledge, for that guidance, and more importantly, for a leader such as Imam Ali alayhi salam was. Our next poet, who will be wrapping up the the first section of our poetry series, is Brother Mikhail Naqvi. Please welcome Brother Mikhail Naqvi with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. How human is he? They ask me over and over and over, what's with this obsession of Ali? Isn't he just like any human, just like you and me? But it's the opposite. The truth is, I can't explain it. For when the Ain Lam and Ya roll off my tongue, I can't help but smile with glee. Smile with glee upon screaming the name of my master, Ali, my protector, my wali. They tell me, don't call upon Ali, call upon those who are alive instead. To those I say, open the Quran, open Surah Al Imran and read with your hearts. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا. And think not of those as dead who are slain in the way of Allah. So don't tell me that my Ali is dead. Don't tell me he isn't alive with my Lord Allah. Not only was my Ali slain in sujood, but upon the strike of the mal'oon, he exclaimed, فُزْتُ وَرَبِّ الْكَعْبَةِ. Tell me, who is like Ali? Because who else but he could lift the door of Khaybar? Who else but he slept in the Prophet's bed while others fled from danger? Who else but he can divide between hellfire and paradise? Who else but he could split marhab in half with a strike so precise? Who else but he could go down in ruku' and give away his own ring? Who else but he does the Quran in his praise continue to sing? Who else but he could be the nafs of Rasulullah? Who else but he could be the comfort for Muhammad on the night of Mi'raj? Who else but he could the Prophet say about أن تكون مني بمنزلة هارون من موسى? Who else but he could be given the hand of Sayyidatun Nisa, Lady of Heaven, Fatimah al-Zahra? So they may question, isn't Ali just a human like you and me? So I say, open a book to read the ahadith and with the hearts and not the eyes. And you'll see that sure, Ali is human, but then you'll question, how human is he? For not just anyone can conquer Badr and Uhud, Jamal and Safin, not anyone except my master Ali. They wouldn't be able to handle Amr in Khandaq or Marhab in Khaybar. None else would dare oppose them except the one whose mother calls him Haydar. How foolish, How foolish are the enemies of Ali, the enemies who opposed him in the Maidan. Normal lions they may have been able to tame, but you cannot tame the lion of Allah. This lion who destroyed kufr like earthquakes destroy cities. But this same lion, the one who couldn't sleep while others were hungry, the most triumphant warrior in mankind's history, but he felt uneasy if a single person slept restlessly, whether thirsty or hungry, under his domain. The sustainer of the orphans, Abul Yatim, the heavens would proclaim, this is Ali, this is my Mawla, the first and the last, the first to stand with my Rasulullah in prayer, my Ali, the last to be with my Rasulullah, while in Ali's arms he passed. They question our love for Ali, they question our majnoon state. But tell me, who did Rasulullah love more than Ali? So if I want to enter Ahmad city, how else can I enter besides its gates? Some ask me, but what about the prophets? What about the Nabis? So I say, tell me, what did the Prophet say himself about the prophets and Ali? Because if I want to see Adam's knowledge, I look at my wali. And if I want to see Nuh's determination, I look at the Prophet's true wasi. And if I want to see Ibrahim's mercy, I look at Imam al-Muttaqeen. And if I want to see Musa's intelligence, I look at Sayyidul Wasiyyin. And if I want to see Isa's religious devotion, I look at the glorious, the spectacular, the one and only Amir al-Mu'mineen. We all look for heroes. Some even idolize the ones we see on TV or the ones we see in the books of history. But the truth is, to find the best hero, you don't have to go far. All you have to do is open your heart and invite Ali. Because if you want the best hero, go to Uhud. You'll hear the proclamation from Allah's most dear, La fata illa Ali, la sayfa illa hero Ali. Knows no fear except that of Allah. Prepare pitchforks with Qur'ans, whether you're a scholar or a hafiz. Ali will smile and say, don't worry, Ana Qur'an natiq. Shaitan's biggest nightmare. Ali holds him in despair. As the nation recites Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim 10 times daily. But some may ask, what is this path? This path we recite dua of guidance for day after day. So to them I say, ask Rasulullah, because he'll point towards Ali and say, Hada sirata al-mustaqim. The path of Ali is the path to Allah. This is the Ali whose raised hand completed Islam, who about Ahmad said, Ali ma al-haqq wal-haqq ma Ali, whose face when looked at is worship of the Almighty, who said, Saluni, Saluni, ask me before you lose me, who on the day of Ghadir was not made just a friend, rather an Imam. Some may call him fourth, some may call him God, but after Muhammad, he is number one. They can call him fourth, 40th, or 400th, but the truth will remain that Ali was ordained from Allah as second to none. Rasulullah even says, if all the trees and gardens turned into pens, if ink was made of the oceans, if people were made scribes and jinn were made accountants, they wouldn't be able to enumerate the merits of Asadullah al-Ghalib, Imamul Mashariqi wal-Magharib, Ghalib ala kulli Ghalib, Ali ibn Abi Talib. So how can I be anything but obsessed with Ali? How can I be anything but majnoon for Ali? In fact, it shouldn't just be us. It shouldn't be just the Ja'fari, because as you'll see, Ali himself shows how he's everywhere. He's for all of humanity, because Ali says, my name in the Bible is Ilya, and in the Torah is Bariya. With the Romans, it is Batrisa, and in the Psalms, it is Arya. With the Indians, it is Kabir. With the Persians, I'm Jaber. With the Ethiopians, I'm Bitrik. With the Turks, I'm Taber. With my father, it is Lahir. With the slaves, I am Haytar. With the Arabs, it is Ali. And my mother knows me as Haydar. So don't tell me Ali is just another human like you and me, because isn't he also the one whose birth was hosted by the house of Allah? The oyster who hosted its pearl on the 13th of Rajab. Who else but he could be invited by the cracking of the Kaaba? For all of us gathered here today, just like Allah cracked the Kaaba, Ali cracked open our hearts and built a shrine, where being enslaved by his love became freedom's sign. So every day we may proclaim before Allah, Ashhadu anna Aliyun waliyullah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Jazakallah, Brother Mikhail, for that incredibly beautiful poetry. Brother Mikhail hit upon another attribute of Mawla. He hit upon many attributes of Mawla Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But particularly when he said, who else but he can split between hell and heaven, which speaks to one of Mawla Ali's attributes and titles, which is Qasimul Jannata wan Nar, the one who differentiates between the heaven and the hellfire. Jazakallah. I did mention that Brother Mikhail would be our last poet in the series, in the first session of the poetry series. However, I want to correct myself. We have Sister Masuma Rizvi, who will be reciting her poetry as the last poet for this session of poetry. I would like to please invite Sister Masuma Rizvi to the podium to please share her poetry with us. Please welcome her with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوات. Ain, Lam, Ya. 3 letters come together to form the name Ali, successor of the Prophet, root of his progeny. Miraculous these letters that give name to his degree, capturing the essence of the hand of loyalty. Ain for his adl, justice unparalleled. Under Khilafat of Ali, even an ant could not complain, for each bead of wealth was accounted for, every dirham, every grain. Word of God was now sustained, because under Ali's reign, what mattered was Allah, all else to him was vain. For Ali's hand stood as a scale in which dhulm he would not foresee, for dhulm to the ummah was dhulm to Ali. Haqq is what he lived for, and for Haqq did he die. Every breath of Ali is coded in Allah's attributes, every possession in his hand sacrificed. Lam is for the Layl of Ali, the nights dedicated to his creator, the nights in sujood praying to he who is greater, greater than the stars, the moon, the sun, the craters, he who turns night into day, he who creates consciousness from clay, brings life into the dead and puts the living down to lay. The nights of Ali in Kufa, where he went door to door, disguised as a stranger, bringing food to the poor, the same Ali who never slept better other than the night he lay in the Prophet's bed, while enemies were thirsty for the Prophet's blood and saw nothing but red. For doing anything for the Prophet was an honor to Ali. It was understood as the full truth and what must be done to succeed. Ya for the yaqeen of Ali, his complete and utter certainty in Allah. In every moment of his being, his submittance to his Lord, from the movement of his lips to the slash of his sword. Yaqeen in the Prophet from the moment he declared, there are verses being sent down from the one beyond compare. Side by side with the Prophet, he was the Prophet's most valuable command until the Prophet's last moment on this earth. His hand held none other than Ali's hand. Salawat.
Jazakallah, Sister Masuma. Thank you very much for those beautiful words of poetry. Sister Masuma said, every breath of Ali is coded in Allah's attributes, which again speaks to, as we have been discussing, the attributes of Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen, that as many attributes as there are of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there was a reflection of that in the life of Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam. And that is our last poet who will wrap up our first poetry series. Can we please have one more loud salawat for all of our poets? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Jazakallah for those beautiful words honoring the life and qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Moving forward in the program, the next item on our agenda is our first panel discussion, which will be centered along family life, embodying the compassion of Imam Ali alayhi salam. To introduce this panel and the panelists, I'd request you all to please shift your attention to the screens at the front.
The Mahdi Youth's Imam Ali Conference, brought to you by the Mahdi Youth Society. Tonight's first panel discussion will be focused on family life, embodying the compassion of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Throughout his life, Imam Ali placed a special emphasis on kids, especially orphans. In attending to their needs, he took on the role of a compassionate provider and father for many. This panel will focus on the compassion of Imam Ali alayhi salam for children and help us find ways to apply it to our lives. We will be hearing from the experiences of our two panelists, Sister Safiya Rizvi and Maulana Sayyid Asad Jafari. Sister Safiya Rizvi is a registered early childhood educator and an early on program facilitator. She has delivered programs to families in schools, libraries, and community centers. She has offered programs and workshops on topics such as infant care, wellness training for teachers and parents, and positive discipline for parents. During her free time, she serves as a teacher at Al-Mahdi's Darul Quran Sunday School. Joining Sister Safiya, we have Maulana Sayyid Asad Jafari. Sayyid Asad was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. After completing his bachelor's in the IT field, he pursued his Hawza studies in Qum in 2004, earning a second bachelor's degree in the field of Quranic sciences. He is currently pursuing his master's degree in Islamic theology. Sayyid Asad is currently the Director of Religious Affairs at As-Sadiq Islamic School. To facilitate this panel, we will have our moderator, Brother Zain Razvi, a parent and active member of the Al-Mahdi community. Let's invite our amazing panelists and moderator to the front with a loud salawat. The Mahdi Youth's Imam Ali Conference, brought to you by the Mahdi Youth Society. Tonight's first panel discussion will be focused on family life, embodying the compassion of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Throughout his life, Imam Ali placed a special emphasis on kids, especially orphans. In attending to their needs, he took on the role of a compassionate provider and father for many. This panel will focus on the compassion of Imam Ali alayhi salam for children and help us find ways to apply it to our lives. We will be hearing from the experiences of our two panelists, Sister Safiya Rizvi and Maulana Sayyid Asad Jafari.
First of all, I wanted to
Sister
thank
Safiya
our
Rizvi
panelists,
is a
for joining us here
registered
today.
early childhood
And
educator
we'll be
and
discussing
an early
the,
on program
family
facilitator.
life embodying
She
the
has
compassion
delivered
of
programs
Imam
to
Ali alayhi
families
salatu
in
wassalam.
schools,
To get the
libraries,
discussion
and
going
community
to get started,
centers.
I'm
She
going
has
to,
offered
start
programs
with,
and workshops on
Maulana,
topics
Asad
such as
Jafari.
infant care,
If you could
wellness
please tell us
training
a
for
bit
teachers
about
and
your
parents,
professional
and
personal
positive
backgrounds and what
discipline
motivates
for
you to work with
parents.
kids.
During her free time, she serves as a teacher at Al-Mahdi's Darul Quran Sunday School. Joining Sister Safiya, we have Maulana Sayyid Asad Jafari. Sayyid Asad was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. After completing his bachelor's in the IT field, he pursued his Hawza studies in Qum in 2004, earning a second bachelor's degree in the field of Quranic sciences. He is currently pursuing his master's degree in Islamic theology. Sayyid Asad is currently the Director of Religious Affairs at As-Sadiq Islamic School. To facilitate this panel, we will have our moderator, Brother Zain Razvi, a parent and active member of the Al-Mahdi community.
with children.
Let's invite our amazing panelists and moderator to the front with a loud salawat.
Mentioning, I think instead of me talking about my personal life, which really is somewhat irrelevant, you look at the way that the Deen of Islam actually establishes the Deen in the peninsula and then protects and safeguards the Deen on the day of Karbala, the day of Ashura in the plains of Karbala. We see that we played a very vital role in that. And something I mentioned to my kids a lot is this idea and this notion.
The Mahdi Youth Imam Ali Conference, brought to you by the Mahdi Youth Society. Tonight's first panel discussion will be focused on family lives, embodying the compassion of Imam Ali alayhi salam.
Mu'mineen's amazing Zulfiqar and war stories up and down his 20s, be it the first Mu'adhin after Fatih Mecca being Bilal. These were all people in their late teens, early 20s. And so, we travel towards the day of Ashura in the plains of Karbala. We see, of course, that the Shuhada of Karbala are young, vibrant individuals in their late 20s, early 20s, sometimes even before they're baligh. So we try to mirror that as a community. As many of you know, as long as I've been in this community, we've tried to work with youth, and be it smaller kids or older kids. And in terms of my personal background, the only thing I'll share with you is that my very first tabligh experience after the Hawza, or during the Hawza, was in 2007, if I date myself now. And it wasn't, a major Muharram Ashra or some Ramadan lecture series. It actually was classes I had with 4 young individuals, aged 13 to 8. My wife and I were there teaching with them and in their home. And it felt like it was a good place to start only because, these are young individuals who have a very clean slate and a zameen in the ground that's ready to be planted on. So from there, of course, it takes off and involved in youth camps and workshops around young individuals, trying to connect with young people. It's hard when you get a little bit older, a little bit wider, but nonetheless, the focus is always on the next generation, inshallah.
Jazakallah Maulana Asad. Sister Safia, if you could please share with us your personal background and what motivates you in your professional background as well.
Yeah, so
Unmute. Top. Yeah.
So my name is Safia, and I have a master's degree in physiology and biotechnology, and I am blessed with 3 kids. When I was taking care of my children, I did not work at all. I was with them full time to raise them in the Islamic way. So they were in the gifted program, so I have to spend lots of time with them. And with my experience, then later when they start school, I start working on as an early childhood educator. I started my career and working in the school system in the Durham region, and also working on Sundays in the Sunday school. That's pretty much it.
Jazakallah, Sister Safia. Thank you. And question again to both of our panelists is how does your background align with your current role? So Sister Safia, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so as I told you that right now I'm working as an early childhood educator. So I have like 2-3 caps while I'm working in the environment. So I also teach the children in the atmosphere to play and learn kind of environment. So they come with their families, and I set up the activities for them, and I teach the children, the new moms and the grandparents, to come and help them to support their children in their journey of their learning, as well as do adult workshops for the parents and the caregivers in school system, also in the libraries. Some of the topics I cover is already mentioned, that in the well-being of the people. Also, like, there's nobody perfect. There's nobody can say like I'm the perfect mom and perfect dad and I have a perfect child. Everybody has pros and cons in their lives. So we have to work with those things, and we have to help our children to become a good Muslim, good Shia, and also a good human being.
Jazakallah. Mana Asad, for yourself, your background, how do you feel that that aligns with your current role?
So as of September, I'm at a Sadiq school full time, as you saw, as their DRA, and that requires many different dimensions of the job. Everything from curriculum building to teachers training to vetting of material, and then of course to dealing with the students firsthand. If that means that going to classrooms when they have a question or a series of questions, if that means addressing the school during these very important days, like yesterday we had a grand celebration for Imam Ali's birthday, or if that means the idea of actually coming in and teaching a module or teaching a period on a certain topic in Islamic studies. One thing that I think that I've been able to apply from my experience is that children don't want to be lied to when it comes to the deen. They want to be told this is how it is, and in a very logical 1 + 1 = 2 format, in a very ilmi way, in a very knowledgeable, logical way. Now, at the same time, you have to pair that with the idea that, look, sometimes you won't understand why you're doing certain things. So we have to first acknowledge the idea of submission towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Imam Ali says, al-Islam huwa al-taslim, al-taslim huwa al-yaqeen. Islam is first submission, then submission after that is certainty. So, it depends on who I'm addressing. We have 34 classes in a Sadiq. We have, ages from 5 all the way to about 17. So when I deal with, let's say, for example, the kindergarten, CASA, and prep classes who are 5, 6 years old, I go there, I make a fool out of myself, I make jokes, I juggle balls, I do my best to create this fun atmosphere and loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, for example, we have initiatives like Story Time with Sayyid. Once a month, I go to every one of the smaller classrooms and I read to them. And at the same time, I ask them if they have any questions, I tell them some jokes. And the idea is to kind of create this love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I can do that, and that's something that I wish was done with me growing up, was that it wasn't really a love-based introduction to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was more or less a fear-based. And that worked, I think, back then, but now I think it's important to kind of give it a swing this way, where we sort of introduce Allah as an entity to be loved. If they were able to establish that in a very younger age, then later on that transits into full submission and proper submission later on. Sometimes, not always, of course, but it's a lot easier to ask a 12, 13, 14-year-old to submit to Allah when they have grown to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or they believe Allah loves them. So that's the focus when it comes to the younger ones. As we get to the older ones, I think that what I've learned from my experience is that we can't shy away sometimes from very uncomfortable conversations. There are really hardcore issues out there right now facing our kids, and the last thing they want to hear from people like me is nothing at all. So when they ask me questions and I sort of dismiss the question, or I don't give them the right answer, or I don't talk about what's truly happening right now on the ground, then they feel like the deen doesn't have an answer for them, which means I have to know what's happening on the ground. I have to kind of stay up to date. And so all these things, my upbringing, my background, dealing with some of the youth in our community growing up, really helps me to kind of tackle the kids at a Sadiq, to make sure that we have some level of preparation for them when they leave the school and they face university or the corporate world. There's a lot more, but I don't want to go on and on. Yeah.
So both your answers actually bring to light one of the interesting things about working with children. I know, being a parent myself, as I'm interacting with my children and teaching them the rules of the religion and the basics, what they're able to understand at their age, it takes me back in my own memory to a time when I was a child and having those interactions with my father and with my mother. And it makes for some very interesting reflections on my part. But I wanted to pick your minds as well to find out, and Sister Safia, we'll start with you, what it's like to remember a younger version of yourself through your interactions with children in your role.
So first of all, I still think that I'm young. Even I have a child in university. So as you're saying about the previous life of my own childhood, so I was very fortunate that I have both my parents, my father and mother, from my education background. My father was the professor of chemistry and my mom was high school teacher. So from the beginning of my life, I see the focus on the studying, caring and compassionate environment. So that's basically bring me to when I have my own children to bring those important aspects which I gained from my childhood to bring it and pass it on to my kids. So that's basically I'm trying to do. From the beginning, I was always with the madrasa, part of the madrasa. I was a student in the madrasa, then I became a teacher in there. So I teach all the levels as Maulana Asta says, but I love most the ages like preschool age, 3 to 5 years of age, because they're like very absorbent. They learn and there's like a clay. You can mold them whatever shapes you want to become your child to be. So and this is like if research, you check the research, so research also mentioned that the early 5 years of your children age, like whatever you want to make them, their personality got created. So you have to provide them the atmosphere, the environment of your child, what you want to be. So if you want to become a good Muslim, so you have to provide and teaching them, giving them that environment, providing that the environment, getting them to the madrasa, and don't leave them like just the madrasa will teach them all the stuff. You have to provide because you are the first teacher of your child. So you have to provide the opportunities and you have to provide the resources of your child to become in a right path.
MashaAllah. Thank you for your response. Maulana Asad, your thoughts on just kind of reflecting back on as you were a child and as you were growing up and having those interactions, and currently in your current role as you are interacting with children as well. What's that like for you?
Yeah, if I look back to my childhood in the 1800s, it's a long time ago. You know, it's again, I go back to the Quran and Allah's words. It's incredible how sometimes Allah uses examples and metaphors that sometimes doesn't make sense, at least to me, until a little bit afterwards. It seems like he talks about a journey. He talks about this travel, and sort of reduces or introduces life in this world to be a journey. And any of the Urafa, you know, you read Imam Khomeini's works, you read, you know, Ayatollah Hassan Mirza Amali's work, you read Ayatollah Jawad Amali's work, it all talks about this sayr we're on, this journey we're on, where we are the salik, right? We are the musafir, we are the travel individual, we're the traveler. And you have to wonder why they think like that. And it obviously makes sense to some of you, but to me, if I use the example of the fact that sometimes when we're on a trip, let's say, for example, and after the trip is over, we kind of debrief that trip, that what went right, what went wrong. Next time we'll stay here. Next time we won't go here. Next time we'll go here. And then if you come across somebody who's about to embark on the exact same journey as you, then you actually go back to that journey you're on and say, don't make the mistakes that we made, or make sure you do what we did here. So for example, you know, we just came back from Umrah in December with the family, and you know, we stop and we think, okay, next time we'll do this, we won't do this, we'll travel like this, we'll leave at this day, too many days here, not enough days here. That's just how natural it is after a journey. If someone comes to you and says, oh, Asabhai, I'm going for Umrah, you know, would you recommend anything? Then yeah, I go back to my journey. Same idea, when I'm with, I call them my kids at a Sadiq, you know, be it, you know, 16 years old or 6 years old, I think to myself, okay, when I was 7, when I was 8, when I was 12, when I was 14, when I was going through my journey then, what is it that worked for me or I guess for those my age? And what is it that I would have done differently? And so I kind of, you know, I look back and Allah says, you know, فَصِيرٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ, right? فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Travel the earth, walk the land, do a journey, right? فَصِيرٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do sayr, like journey on the land. Open your eyes, look around. And so yes, when I speak to a 9-year-old, for example, I do try to, if I remember, take myself back to when I was that old and ask myself, what is it that I wish I had? So one thing that I really sort of tried to build is a culture of asking questions and a culture of converting doubt into certainty. And so small initiatives, for example, and this is not on a Sadiq AGM, but just so you know, any parents in the audience, I asked the teachers to have a question jar or a question box in their classrooms. And if they come across a question they can't answer, the child writes it down and puts it inside the box. When the box is filled enough, they invite me to come and spend a period with them to answer those questions. And these questions are incredible, like incredible questions. I'll give you one example. Grade 3, 8 years old. Somebody asked me, why did Imam Ali offer milk to Ibn Muljim when it was a month of Ramadan and he knew that he was fasting? Great question, right? I was like, oh my goodness. Was Ibn Muljim a Muslim? How can Imam Ali ask him to break his fast? And it's just, you understand the level and the thirst of the child through small acts like that, right? And so if we are able to create a culture where these kids have this openness, where there's no questions that are off limits, the culture of approachability, open door comfort, there's no question that, and you encourage them. I wish sometimes I had, even though I did have that, but a little bit more maybe, where the idea was, to kind of build that doubt and into certainty. Because doubt can easily become kufr and disbelief, but it can also easily become certainty and faith as well. So I think that's what it is. The journey that I take myself back when I was 11, 12, 14. I asked myself, what did I want to hear back then? What could have helped me back then? If I'm able to sort of jog my memory from the 1800s, then I apply it. Otherwise, I do ask for advice. I do ask other teachers who are there. That sometimes helps. It's a tough question to answer, though.
Jazakallah. Yeah. You both touched on some very interesting topics. So, for example, I know that as I'm going through and having discussions with my own kids and trying to explain to them and get them through a certain process, such as how to pray salat or how to keep your hands folded, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure many of the parents in the audience here have come across similar situations where you're taking them to the madrasa, you're providing them with the information, the example, and it's not resonating with the child, or there's resistance from the child, which could possibly lead to the buildup of frustration within the parents and so on and so forth. Are there any pieces of advice or any stories or any lessons from the life of Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam that really resonates with you regarding upbringing and nurturing of children and just having that sort of interaction when you're in a situation where you are encountering resistance from your child?
Bismillah.
Sister Safiya,
So everybody knows about the story when Imam Ali went to a widow house and he was helping while she was cooking the food, and he was playing with the kids. So he was like playing, like not like on the floor, he was playing with them and he was making them smile and engaging and interacting. So while Imam Ali was leaving from that house, those children were very happy. So you can see the smile on their faces. So that should be in our responsibility. So if we have any children in our responsibility, so we have to make them like open, engaging environment for them. So let's say if they have any kind of questions, you need to provide like the problem solving skill, the critical analysis, giving them some kind of techniques and strategy to sort them different perspectives in their lives. Let's say if they're aggressive or they don't want to come to madrasa, so one day you can talk to them and then you can ask them the question why they don't want to go. Maybe they don't like the teacher, and what was the environment, what they didn't like about it. So you can have like the open discussion with your child, and then you can come up with the solution. Okay, if you don't want to go today, that's fine, you're not going that, but like how we can work on at home and while we study. So maybe one day you spend time with it, and then you say how many time you spend. If you will be in the school or in the madrasa system, you will learn, you will have a playtime with your other friends too. So you have like social circle, you will learn more, and you have like questions, and you have answers, so you can get some kinds of support from them too. So you should be like open with the teacher. Like it says, if you are talking about like the children not coming to madrasa, so you can talk to the teacher about it, you can talk to the principal about it, and you can work from them there and then move on to that. If they have even any other kinds of problem arise, so you work with your child. You are the first person in their child's life. You are a first teacher of them, so you have to make sure that if you don't have a capability to that, so you are giving to somebody else. But if you have the ability to do it, so you start with them and then move on with that.
MashaAllah. Thank you. Maulana Asad, your thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things that has been mentioned quite a bit when it comes to Imam Ali, and it was mentioned in the intro video as well, is that his time with the orphans. Now, it's one thing where he would go and spend time with them and provide them food and possibly some company, but sometimes I think what we forget, and it's to me it's a very emotional moment during his shahadat, actually in the month of Ramadan, is that when the small kids of Kufa found out that he was struck with a sword, and it was a poisonous sword, their first thought was, how can we take away the pain of Imam Ali? And someone told them that milk is actually a quick remedy for poison and for that type of pain. So imagine now, will you imagine these orphan children who have very little to their name, searching for small cups to fill them with as much milk as possible, and running towards the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, attempting now to maybe through my milk, he will feel better. That means that there was compassion that was shared between both the child and Amir al-Mu'mineen. It wasn't just him dropping off something at someone's home. He made them feel like they were heard. He made them feel like they were the most important people in his life. For them to sacrifice the milk that they had, the food that they had, which probably was very near and dear to them, with the hopes that maybe he might feel better. Again, it goes to the idea that, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, that you won't reach the level of righteousness until you give out of what you love. So here, he's at a very young age, mind you, he's injecting inside of them this idea of compassion where you give out of what you love. So I think that you're going to have resistance from your child. Not everything, they're not going to happily sometimes get up for Fajr. They're not going to, they're going to resist the idea of going to the center, Quran class. They'll roll their eyes, they'll hoo and they'll ha. And that's just them being children. But if you can be I can be a little bit compassionate towards my children, right? And just acknowledge the fact, I know it's hard, but this is something that's going to be good for you a little bit later on. The same Imam Ali says that patience is found in 3 different levels. The first 2 are obvious. He says that during ala ma'siyah, he says, during hardships, you have to have sabr. Fine. That makes sense. The second one is fighting shaitan. Makes sense. But he was so realistic, Imam Ali. He says that even in worshiping God, you need to be patient. That's for us adults. Imagine a child at the age of 7, 8 trying to establish some routine or some rhythm when it comes to salat every day. There's going to be moments where they simply don't want to do it. And that's the reality of everyone's heart, right? The qalb is a fluctuating reality where sometimes it's iqbal, sometimes it's idbar. Sometimes we run towards the musalla, sometimes we have to be dragged towards the musalla to pray salat. That's our state, in our 90s, people like me. Imagine, individuals who are younger, 7, 8, 9 years old. So I think that if you are a little bit compassionate with them, you acknowledge the fact that it's hard, but sometimes you have to sort of, power through that difficult nature. And knowing full, this is all part of tarbiyah, part of nurturing, inshallah. But yeah, that story of Imam Ali, where he was able not only to be compassionate, but make them compassionate as well, I thought was incredible.
Jazakallah, mashallah. You have given us quite a bit to think of, both of you. Jazakallah, thank you for that. And you've aged very gracefully for a 90-year-old. So we're talking about compassion. I guess my next question is, but before I go on with that, I just wanted to also remind the members of the audience that please, this is not just a discussion between myself and the panelists here. Please, if you do have any questions, please do feel free to text your questions to 647-676-0746. I believe the number is popping up on the slides as well. we can absolutely always take questions from the audience too. So we're talking about compassion and the importance of having a compassionate upbringing with our children. So number one, how important is compassion in the upbringing of our children? And what would constitute a compassionate upbringing of children? Sister Safia, you can start.
Can you repeat it?
So essentially, what I'm trying to find out is your thoughts on what is compassion, number one, and what would be considered compassionate upbringing of children.
Yeah, so you should do the compassion, like it should be the open communication between you and your child. You will set the limits, of course, but it's like open discussion. If they have any questions or any concern about any kind of problem, it should be open, or if they make any mistake, it should be open that they come to you, not telling to others, and you find out from others like what's going on with your child life. So if you are open with them and they're open to you, they can come and then you can direct them the right way. Of course you will set some limits too. So there's a you can say like there's so many different kinds of parental strategies and parenting style happen these days, but what it reflects on us as an Islamic perspective. I like the authoritarian parenting style better, in which you are not like the boss. Like authoritative is like you think that the child has to obey whatever you order, right? So it not give them the child any kinds of their reflection on any kinds of topic or any kinds of perspective. But that kinds of parenting style give them the strategy that it's open-ended between both of you, your child and yourself, and they can come to be it's like responsive one. It's not like my way or no way, it's like both way. And then you can come up with the solution or with the strategies. You are making the plan for your child, and your child know if they do any wrong things, so they have to go through with a different circumstances. So it's like the open kind of barrier, and they are open with you as well. So that's the way. And then you can give them like the respect they need, because respect is most important. Yeah, of course you are providing shelter, you are providing food, you are providing all the luxuries of their lives, but it's most important that you provide them the faith, the beliefs, the Islamic values in your child from beginning of the age. And like the 5 to 7 is the best age to bring that on, because it's like they're very flat surface in their mind. Whatever you plan, it will grow up like nicer way. So that's why it's really important. And then don't blame in front of others. Let's say if you see your child did something wrong in front of it, don't like start criticizing in front of everybody. That's the humiliation of your child, right in front of everyone. So you can go back and then you can talk about like what's going on, what happened in your life, why did you behave this way. So you are discussing with him, but not in front of everybody. You are not calling him that, oh, your cousin did something nice, how you are not doing this way. So you have to give them respect, because not all the children are the same. Every child has unique abilities, every child has unique qualities in their lives. It's not like everybody is a good speaker or everybody has their own characteristics in their life. So you have to work on the weaknesses of your child and also the strengths of your child. So that's gonna be as compassionate with the lifestyle of your child upbringing.
Jazakallah, thank you. So having an open relationship with your children, as well as making sure that we're balancing that with Islamic teachings and beliefs. Maulana Asad, your thoughts, please.
If we look at the Quranic concept of speaking to children, let's go a little bit back. The Prophet has a very profound tradition that talks about Ana wa Ali abwa hadha al-ummah, that me and Ali are the fathers of this nation. Now, spiritual fathers, guides, looking after our spirituality and our mental well-being. You couple that with the fact that if that's the case, then us as his followers, we become essentially his mutarabbi. If he is our murabbi, our guide, the one who gives us tarbiyah, we are the mutarabbi. We're the ones that accept that tarbiyah. And how is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al Imran telling the Prophet to guide essentially your children? He says to be very gentle with them. Right? لو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك فاعف عنهم واستغفر لهم وشاورهم في الأمر. Very beautiful, profound verse that says, had you been hard-hearted with them, had you been rough with them, لانفضوا من حولك, they would have left you. So instead, he says, forgive them and seek forgiveness for them. Right? As Shias, we use that a little bit as our tawassul and shafa'at proof. And then he says, ask counsel from them, seek advice from them. God is telling the Holy Prophet as our father, essentially, how to treat us with compassion. Which brings us to our point, as today's parents and fathers and mothers, we have to be a little bit careful with how we speak to our children. Words matter. Words hit home. Words stick around. Words scar. Sometimes words don't ever heal. And we assume that the child knows what I mean, or we assume that that is our level of punishment, and sometimes we have to lay down the authority. I'm not saying to don't discipline your child, don't have that level of authority. You are the wali of the house, you have that wilayah, don't sacrifice that, right? There is a difference from being a friendly parent to being a friend as a parent. I would never recommend being a friend as a parent. They have a bunch of friends. They need a friendly parent though, but that parent has to be still that wali, but not at the cost of the hurmat or the dignity of a child. And that's what the Quran says, be soft with them. And it's incredible how Allah says to the Prophet, seek advice from them. Meaning that's humbling for the Prophet of Allah to go and seek advice from someone like, for example, Salman al-Farsi. In the war of Khandaq, the war of Ahzab, that trench that was dug, which was a genius idea, really was the idea of Salman al-Farsi. And as brilliant as it was for a Sahabi to take or give that advice, it was a masterful decision for the Prophet to take that advice. And that's the sign of a good wali at that moment, right? So dismissing your child, or if I dismiss my child to be someone who doesn't have anything to offer, or if I use, God forbid, harsh words, because that's what I heard growing up as an immigrant child, then we have to be a little bit careful. We can't repeat those same mistakes, right? So, if Allah is telling the father of our nation, the Prophet of Allah, to talk to us gently and to seek forgiveness for them, meaning be forgiving for them, be compassionate towards them, I think at least let's start with our tongues. At least let's ensure that we live in a very sensitive era where words are measured and where the level of emotional intelligence out of a child is skyrocketing. Now, whether you agree or not agree, that's beyond the point. But tarbiyat by chappal won't go very far after a while. You have to begin to sort of use your words. And when you use your words, you have to weigh your own words a little bit carefully. And that's just not me. We have up and down, if I have more time, we're up and down the Quran, qawlan karima, qawlan sadida, qawlan layyina, all different qawls we have in the Quran where Allah now is telling us this is the mode of communication that you have to use depending on who you're speaking to. A small child where every word matters, to really, really be a little bit careful. Inshallah.
Jazakallah. Thank you very much for that. So alhamdulillah, we're getting some questions from the audience as well. The first question, Maulana Asad, is for you. And the moment wanted to know, how do we Islamically guide children through grief and to regulate their emotions while still reminding them of the beauty of God's plan and to trust them?
That's a good question. I think that for grief, again, I go back to the idea of being a little bit realistic with your child, okay? If they're dealing with a grandmother or a grandfather being lost, or a classmate or a parent or a sibling, or, it depends on what age this is, obviously, right? If we're talking about younger kids, then, we have to remind them of the fact that, this world is temporary. And they may not understand that, but at the same time, this is where submission comes in, right? Understanding Allah's wisdom behind that. What I don't prefer to see is that the idea of, blocking the natural expression of emotion, telling a child not to cry, for example, it hurts the soul or something like that, or telling a child, for example, that something that is just not logical, right? So I think part of the grieving process is to take it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always go sort of rooftop view to say, they lived in this world for a certain purpose and then they've moved on. And that might be a good segue, again, depending on how young they are, and you know best what your child can handle. But there are some kids who are able to handle the idea that it's a good reminder this is a temporary world, but there are other worlds waiting for us. That death is not annihilation. It's the movement, or it's a transfer from one world to another. Again, depending on the capacity of a child, right? 15, 16, 17, you can really have a good high-level talk with your child, and they have that absorption capability to now understand that this world is, kullu man alayha fan. It's a perishing world. And you can talk about that, but until they actually see death for the first time, wash a dead body, bury a dead body, that's an immediate reminder that, I'm going to be in that box one day as well. If they're younger, let them grieve. I know you miss her. I know it's tough. It's okay. We're here. Don't worry. Pray for them now. And then slowly but surely let them know that this was, Allah's will, and this is, where we submit to Allah and we pray to them, open the Quran, etc., etc. Make it an avenue back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, it's an open-ended question depending on how old they are, of course. Yeah.
Jazakallah Mawlana.
Sorry, Bismillah. If you can touch on that'd be good.
I actually have another question for Sister Safia.
Oh, good.
You had touched upon the different types of parenting styles, and Mawlana Asad added one, parenting by tempo. So the question for you, Sister Safia, was, what are good strategies to deal with or redirect frustration or anger, or when you lose your patience with your children?
So we know, when our brain is the prefrontal cortex, when make the like this. So let's imagine that's my brain. So right now I'm thinking with my prefrontal cortex. So my frontal brain helping and supporting me to thinking for my critical analysis and everything. Let's say when I'm in a fight, flight, freeze moment, suddenly something come up, so I have to react. So my smaller brain, which is amygdala, he flipped the lid. So right now I cannot feel, I cannot think right now. So I'm in the fight, flight, freeze mode. So maybe I'm in the shock phase, or maybe I just run away from the place, or maybe I'm gonna just fight for it. So for that situation, the person who's in charge of this program, first he has to calm themselves down. So as a mother, if I get angry and I'm upset for something, so I have to calm myself down first. So, and then I have to tell my child some coping strategies. Maybe sit down, count to 10, or if your child is younger, redirect with something. Because when he is in that stage, he's not thinking. So he's in the tantrum state. So whatever you want to tell them, he's not going to listen. He's going to refuse that moment, because that time he's not thinking. His thinking brain is just shut down that way. So you have to calm yourself down first. You have to calm your child down first, and then you will have the discussion. And then if you will teach him any kinds of problem solving strategies, any coping strategies, if he's a young child, you can ask him do the belly exercise, exhale and inhale, or do, if you have a small child, or for an older person, you have a ball and exercising ball, just opening and closing. So you come back to your original phase, your normal person being. So then your thinking strategies still working, and then you can work on that way. It doesn't matter if you're talking to your hubby, you're talking to your wife, or talking to your grandparents, your in-laws. It happens all the time. So you have to get back that time while everybody's angry, everybody upset of that situation. When they come back to their normal phase, when you talk, so everyone will say sorry. I'm sorry, beta. I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry. And the child will say to you as well. So yeah, so that moment is critical. You have to wait for that moment to pass by, and then you can work on the situation.
MashaAllah. So that's actually some very good strategies, and I think it's very important that what you had mentioned, that number one, we need to make sure that we ourselves
In the
are
thinking
calm
process.
first, absolutely, and then using coping strategies such as redirecting and so on and so forth. Jazakallah, thank you for that. Next question: can either of you, and Maulana, we'll start with you, talk about teaching our children to have courage, to show compassion towards others who might be getting bullied or mistreated?
So you're asking a child to be compassionate towards those who are being bullied.
Mhm.
Okay. Because this conference is about Imam Ali, sometimes let's go back to his life a little bit and how it didn't matter who was in need. He gave to the ones who were in need. You know, the very famous story of the three fasts that he had kept at the advice of the Holy Prophet when his son Imam Hassan alayhi salam was sick, and then so the verses of Surah Al-Insan were revealed that that a yatim, an asir, and a miskin come to the door giving and asking for iftar, and they gave that iftar. Sometimes I think that it took me a while to understand that. I understand the idea that there might be a Muslim orphan during those days. There might be a Muslim miskin during those days. But the captive, the asir that has come to the house of Imam Ali looking for food, they weren't Muslim captives back then. They were all non-Muslim captives, maybe even atheist captives, arriving at the door of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidah Fatima looking for food. Nowhere does Imam Ali give an interview saying, what do you believe in? Who do you believe in? Are you an atheist? Are you a non-Muslim? Are you Ahl Kitab? What is your thought towards the Ahlul Bayt? No, he saw someone in need and he gave. And I think it's such a beautiful lesson. And we talk about inclusion today. We talk about the idea of being compassionate towards others. Talk about whoever is in need, we give. These were all established, 1,400 years ago by Imam Ali. Literally by his actions, that he gave the food that was made for him and his family away to a non-Muslim captive. So I think that anytime all of us see anybody in need, be it being someone being bullied at school, you have to do your best to help that person. Now, what that entails within the laws of the school, of course, if not for anything else, then just support, because it's a very lonely feeling to be bullied in school, and bullying is a real issue that we're all facing right now in school. These are kids that live right now in a post-COVID world. And so, I don't know how they've spent COVID. It could be that, parents out of majburi, out of sheer, what's majburi in English? Frustration, helplessness, that they put a screen in front of a child. Because we're working in Source Mama, we're working in Source Baba. So you guys figure things out with your Zoom school. And so now these kids are coming out after 2 years, and what I have seen in my first 4 months at a Sadiq is aggressive behavior, aggressive language in the playground, in the soccer field, how to add that etiquette of a classroom, speaking to a teacher, speaking to somebody else. So the bullying has gone really up one notch, right? And so trying to address that not only from the point of the victim, but also from the point of the culprit is, identifying that if you are someone who's watching this happen, at least sympathize, right? Be there beside the person who's being bullied, right? If you don't have the courage to come forward and talk about that, then at least let's adopt the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And it doesn't matter who it is, your friend, not friend, part of one group, that class, another class. That compassion, I think, is important. So I do think that we can teach our child that if you do see somebody that's being wronged, stand beside them, right? As long as that wrong is happening within the confines of the Sharia, then I think that's important.
Jazakallah. That's it's a very good point as well, because number one, being bullied itself is a very traumatic experience. However, witnessing it can also be a traumatic experience. Sister Safia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we should teach our children to stand for your own rights and stand for the oppressors, or stand for somebody who's getting hurt. So he should, if he just need a little hug, if there is a young children, like if we're talking about under 5 or under 6, and he get bullied, he's getting hit, so it's gonna be a different strategy. But if it's like the high school kid and he's getting bullied, so it's a different. So he has to approach to the higher authorities and talk about it, has to discuss about it and find out the solutions, like what's gonna be happen next, what we can do to protect this person and protect myself, and what strategies and what the support is available for us. Of course, like in the high school system, there's so many counselors available. There's so many mental health issues happening, as Molana said also mentioned, and screen time like also has like bad influence our children's mind right now. As you say, the research says like under 2 years of age there should be no electronics, no screen time, but we see in the masjid, in the majalis or bilad, like children under 2, like they have their own because they cannot stop, and mommy needs to calm them down, giving them a cartoon or media to watch. And like for 1 year till the 3 years supposed to be 2 hours, but we see, and after that is gonna be more like 3 hours and etc and etc. But it's not work because we saw like everybody's were working, even the classes were happening with the on screen, so everybody was on the screen. So how much bad influence happened in everybody's mind, not only for the kids, for us as well. Like we were working with from home and with the screen, so before we don't have the glasses, but now we all wear the glasses. It's the first side effect of the COVID happened to all of us. So like there's so many things that we have to teach the children the strategies, and we have to provide them like the how to raise their voice in front of others if they saw something happening wrong.
Jazakallah, thank you for that. I've been getting a lot of questions about the stages of raising children. So we've heard the advice given in the past by our Imam alayhi salam about the 7 years. First 7, second 7, third and fourth 7. So a lot of the questions focus around, for the first 7 years, what are the different stages? What are the different roles and responsibilities for each set of 7 years? In addition to that, there's another question about, certain groups of 7 years have been identified with certain characteristics. So, for example, the first 7, they are the king, and then they are the slave, and then they are the mentor or the advisor, et cetera, et cetera. How do you, as our children grow through these 7 different or these 4 different phases of 7 years, how do we enforce concepts such as discipline and making sure that our kids are, for example, if they're in the king phase, or how do you discipline a king? How do you make sure that they stay focused and that they're getting the correct moral Islamic upbringing and teaching?
So, like first 7 years, we say they are the king of our house. Imam Ali says like provide, because they are in the nurturing environment. The physical state is gonna need to develop. Their brain need to develop. Like all the psychological effects gonna be developed. So at that stage, Imam Ali does not say like just leave them, like just neglect them, or they can do whatever they want to do. But they need to have a little kinds of limits. They need to have a little kinds of parent supervision from their minds, and then we can provide them like if they do a wrong thing, so what are the physical or natural consequences of each. So yeah, you should have like the open discussion. Of course they are growing, they are the king, but the king also needs somebody's assistance. So if even our Trudeau needs some kinds of advice and assistance, he cannot do anything by himself, so we can know that. So first 7 years, yes, we are following their routine because we want to nurture them, we want to support them, but it does not mean that we provide them with permissive kind of environment. Whatever they want to do, they can do because they are the king of the house. No, they need some kinds of routine, some kinds of restrictions also. And then 7 to 14, of course, there is a slave stage. So these are the critical stage that our children minds are developing. So mental status is getting developed. So that's the stage we have to let them start to do the prayers, ask them to do wuzu. We will not wait till then they get baligh, because if they're not having their routine, if they're not planning to be doing the ritual thing right now, they're not gonna do it when they're gonna grow up and when they're gonna baligh. So 7 to 14 is the planting time that we have to provide them the nurturing environment, and we are providing the open connection with them. We are giving them the advice, not the orders. We are planning to give them those kinds of instructions 7 to 14. Of course, they cannot do anything by themselves. They need the help. So we are right there for them to help and support. But when they got like 14, after the 14, then they are your advisor because their brain is kindly stabilized. So their mental state is good. So they can give you the good suggestions and good ideas about like it's they're your helper and supporters as well. So let's see if some kinds of problems happen, so you can ask them to what we can do. So they will give you, and sometimes the children give you better idea than it comes to you because they are open up with this world and they know better than about the situation. So that's why it's really important. So in every stage they need us because we are here to help and support them. We do not leave them. We have to provide them like the, as I said previously, the authoritative parenting style. So helping and support them in each of the way. So Maulana can
That's
explain.
good. No, that's a good summary. I mean, she's right. I think the misconception sometimes is that the first 7 years, no discipline, don't say a word to them, let them do what they want, break the walls, break their necks, it's okay. The moment 7 comes about, the chappal comes out. And that's not how it's going to work, right? Obviously, that's not how illogical Islam is. It is about capacity. And the first 7 years, in an ideal educational system, the kids should just be playing in those first 7 years. Teaching them long division and these concepts is a lot to ask a child before the age of 7. Once they hit 7, however, those 7 to 14 years are very, very crucial. If you have a child in that age range in this audience, please be very wary. The child is able to understand concepts and they're able to be pushed now further. That's where you'll find maybe some resistance. That's where you'll find them, fighting this idea of growing and knowing more. The first 7 years, it does not mean that we don't discipline the child. Kids thrive on limits. They thrive on a schedule. As much as they fight for the idea of bedtime being at 7:30, 8 o'clock, they do thrive on that. And you can't let them sort of just kind of, go without limits. And Allah talks about capacity, right? La yukallif Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah Himself identifies a capacity, does not ask for anything beyond the capacity. Your child from 0 to 7 has a certain capacity. Asking them to go beyond the capacity is what's meant by king, right? Is that at that moment they're not asked to do what a 10-year-old might do in your house or a 16-year-old might do in your house, right? And sometimes the siblings will say, well, how come he can't do that? Well, he's 6 years old and you're 15 years old, right? His capacity is different from your capacity. And then, the 7 to 14 is really where those tools are given, be it the fact that now Salat is introduced now, you push them towards the idea of understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they'll be very curious, and you'll see like a switch go off when they're 7. And you can see at the moment now they're expanding their capacity. And so give them and let them grow. And with the hopes that when they reach that 14, 15, 17 age, what they learn between 7 and 14, they'll apply. That's when, like as she said very beautifully, you advise them and they also advise you. And that's really where they feel like, okay, you know what, I have a voice now, and then that voice is being heard by my parents. So small things like, what do you think about this idea or that idea? And then actually applying what they actually suggest.
Jazakallah. Thank you both for your insights and your thoughts. It's been a very interesting and knowledgeable experience that we've had over here. I just wanted to emphasize one of the underlying concepts that we've been discussing here is obviously, as Maulana Asad had mentioned, setting expectations, knowing what your capacity is, the capacity of your children, but also being involved with that in the upbringing of your children, being an active participant in that. And I wanted to thank you guys very much for your time, for sharing your thoughts and your knowledge with us. Before I let you go, this question is it's more of a opportunity to share. If you could, and Sister Safia, we'll start with you. If you could please tell us your favorite quote from Imam Ali alayhi salam and how it inspires you with your work.
Yeah, so the first one comes to my mind is that about the raising the children. So the way your parents raised you is different, and the way your children should be raised is different because they're born for a different era. So there's so many misconception about this, that people think that if they are for the next era, so what do you mean by that? Like, we cannot give them the teaching of the Islam, we cannot follow the routine, we cannot help and support them. No, Imam Ali was telling that on that age, when your children will born, is gonna be a new technology. It's not like copying the Western style and wearing the clothes or something like that, like following their idealize those people, like idealize the Ahlul Bayt and Masumin alayhi salam, and give them the technology and the next generation, like in the 21st generation, what's happening. So of course they need to know about like the what's happening in the social media, what happening in this world, how the new technology is working. We cannot like hold them back from these, but they have to know the rules and limits, that what they can do, or what they cannot do, and what can hurt them, and what can be help and benefit for them in the future. So that's why it's our responsibility to let our children know that they're independent now, they're open, but they have some rules and limits from our culture, from our faith, from our beliefs. So they have to follow those rules and regulations in their life. It does not mean that they can do anything they want, but they have to do those things which are in the path of Aimai Tahirin and Masumin alayhi salam.
Jazakallah. Maulana said your favorite quote and how it plays into your work.
One quote that's my favorite from Imam Ali. It's a big collection. Letter number 31 of Nahj al-Balagha is a letter he wrote to his son Imam Hassan. It's a beautiful letter, and has so many levels of advice that we can all apply today. In there, he says very famously that the heart of the youth is uncultivated land. We've heard it 1,000 times. But now that I work with kids almost on a daily basis, I literally see the fact that you can tell which kids have had their hearts planted on with the right seeds. And watching them grow in front of you, you can see the fact that there was work done on their quote unquote zameen and ground when they were younger, later on. And so, it goes back to the home environment. We talk about the school a lot, but the first, as she had said several times, the first madrasa for a child, of course, is the home, and that's where everything begins. These schools and these madaris are not meant to replace what's being done at home. They're meant to reinforce what's being done at home. And so, these schools will always fail if the home environment doesn't replicate or duplicate what's trying to be done at school. And so, it goes back to the idea that, let's be careful what we plant inside that child. So our home environment, be it the language we use with each other, be it, what plays on our television, be it what we bring in terms of food inside of our homes, where we take our kids sometimes to gatherings and celebrations and weddings that maybe we shouldn't be. Those are all seeds being planted inside the hearts of kids. And so 10 years, 15 years from now, there should not be a shock value when there seems to be this growth of misguidance or the growth of deviance. That's what we planted, right? So let's be a little bit careful.
Jazakallah. Thank you to both our panelists today, Sister Safia Rizvi and Maulana Sayyida Said Jafri. We would now like to take a small snack break for 15 minutes. So brothers, the refreshments will be served at the back of the hall over here. Sisters, refreshments will be served in the ladies' hall. If you could please make your way over. And inshallah, we will reconvene in 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Actually starts before the child's born. Who you married? I agree. He's coming or you're going? I find this stuff to be a little bit different than the program. Get out and go. Other people, you are not enough. No, no, no.
Brothers and sisters, there's also tea. Tea is also being served at the back of the halls.
There's a chair at the back. Let's take that out right here. This file's gonna have 3 panels. There's a chair at the back. Be careful, yeah. Wires. Take it out. It's fine, no? Look at this. Because the moderator sits here.
Brothers and sisters, as we approach the end of our 15-minute break, I'd like to request everybody to please return to the men's hall. If I could get the brothers on the right side of the hall and the sisters, please return to the men's side on the left side of the hall. And we will be reconvening in the next 60 seconds.
Exactly. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Exactly. That's about it.
Are you gonna keep that up?
You're standing right here. Usher, right there.
If I could once again please request, brothers, if you could please take your seats as we reconvene. And sisters, if you could please return to the men's hall and take your seats so that we may move our program forward. Jazakallah. We would like to reconvene our program. If we could please request the sisters to please return to the men's hall so that we may get started. Okay, Jazakallah. Jazakallah. Thank you very much for returning to the conference tonight. So welcome back to the second part of the Mahdi Youth Imam Ali Conference. Thus far, we've had one poetry session and we've had one panel discussion through which we were enlightened about the qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam, as well as the teachings and guidance of Imam Ali alayhi salam when it comes to compassion and having a compassionate family life and raising our children with compassion and mercy. Among many of the qualities that Imam Ali alayhi salam exemplified, one that stands out is his leadership. And I think it's one of the qualities that Imam Ali alayhi salam is most well known for, was his qualities as a leader. Today we're surrounded by countless examples of individuals who aim to embody the characteristics of Imam Ali alayhi salam in their day-to-day life. In a powerful hadith by Imam Ali alayhi salam himself, he says, "How can I be satisfied to be called Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the believers, by people and do not share in their hardships, or I do not become an example for them in the difficulties? Shall I be comfortable with a full stomach and there are hungry stomachs around me? I must live in the lowest level so that the poor may be able to endure poverty easily." And again, this hadith from Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam exemplifies his dedication and his commitment to ensuring that social justice was something that was practically implemented in the society at that time, as well as his qualities of leadership. Our Imam uses his words to show us how we should aim to be, and use our good fortune to ensure our brothers and sisters who are struggling are also taken care of. To kick off our second poetry series, I would like to begin by calling up Brother Naqi Rizvi. Please welcome Brother Naqi Rizvi with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Just 4 lines of poetry before I move on to my poem. The stars that I saw with my pen sing about your shimmer. The stars that I saw with my pen sing about your shimmer. They shine as I write your name. They chant your praise and glimmer. They shine as I write your name. They chant your praise and glimmer. They say when Maula Ali would lift his head in prayer. They say when Maula Ali would lift his head in prayer, the light from the heavens would look from his bright face dimmer. The light from the heavens would look from his bright face dimmer. Salawat. This poem is called The Lover's Senses. If only I could be the ears of your kumel, if I could hear your words removing every veil, if only I could climb the peaks of eloquence, if I could sail the oceans of intelligence, if only I could bask in your benevolence, if I could drown within your sound its resonance, if only I could hear you whisper to your Lord, if I could know the secrets that your heart has stored, if only I can hear you saying, Ya Rabbi, if I could see Allah the way that you have seen, if only I can hear you saying, Aghfirli, if I could feel the hope you have in His mercy, if only I could be your Qambar's blessed hands, if I could serve you and fulfill all your commands, If only I could touch the sacred hand of God, if I could clean the blessed feet that angels sought. If only I could be the keeper of your gate, if I could gate the city of knowledge's gate. If only I could wave your banner during war, if I could fight your enemies, they'd be no more. If only I could pour your water for wudu, if I could purify my soul through servitude. If only I could be your Misam's mighty tongue, if I could be guilty of love, if I could be guilty of your love and be hung. If only I could make my words the lion's roar, if I could shake tyranny to its deepest core. If only I could say salam and you replied. If only if I could ask about the secrets that you hide. If only I could sing your songs like symphonies. If I could be the vessel for your mysteries. If only I could taste the sweetness of your speech. If I could bring your words upon my tongue and preach. If only I could be a Mars fortunate eyes, if I could see the beauty of the sun at rise, if only I could see the galaxies of night, if I could see you I would know love at first sight. If only I could witness your generous smile, if I could see the face of God for just a while. If only I could see you if only I could see you and with you the truth, if I could make my every action mirror you. If only I could be Salman's glorious heart, if I could just cling on to you and never part. If only I could have been shown all that you know, if I could have received the gifts that you bestowed. If only I could be the chest for your treasures, if I could fill my chest with your love unmeasured. If only I could keep you here forever near, if I could hear you in my heart, what would I hear? Naki, you yearn with all your heart for your Ali. What have you done to be among my son Mahdi? Salawat.
MashaAllah, thank you for that beautiful recitation, Brother Naqi. Brother Naqi said, when Mawla Ali would lift his head in prayer, the light from the heavens would look from his bright face dimmer. Subhanallah. And with that, I would like to now move on to the second poet or poetess of our poetry session for tonight. I'd like to invite Sister Alize Jafri. Please welcome her with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Three short poems to share in honor of Mawla Ali alayhi salam today. First one is called The Name of My Mawla. With the ink of the universe, Allah wrote a name, inscribing it with love upon heaven and earth. N was written eternally humble, gracefully bowing in a state of ruku. A single stroke of ink made Lam, confident and tall, standing in qiyam. And with a flourish came Ya, deep in prostration, forehead to earth, the peak of elevation. And the second one is called The Search, and it is a letter to Imam Ali alayhi salam. Perhaps the best gift from my Lord is this insatiable search for more of you. A part of me gives thanks that I did not live in a time where your countenance was accessible, What if my eyes were too weak, too worldly to know what I saw? No, this pain of separation is in itself a guidance. Hours and days go by in the wonderment that this love that brims in my soul once had a face and a voice, a stride that I may have followed. As I traverse this earth and my breath catches upon its broken edges, I inhale and exhale, oxygen taking the shape of your name. Insatiably, I search for more of you. And finally, it is a poem about the experience of leaving the haram of Mawla Ali alayhi salam after completing Ziyarat, and it's a poetic interpretation of Nadi Ali. As a child, I learned that a good host stands at the door until distance fades the image of a departing guest. So when I left your door that final time, how could my heart find rest? The most gracious host was watching me leave, and I didn't know when I would see you next. When my steps lingered for a moment too long, I knew of only one way to be strong, so I said, Ya Ali Madad, and walked ahead. When I spoke those words, you left your place at the door and walked with me instead. It was then I knew that you could not just be enshrined within golden walls. Rather, you live within every heart that calls upon Ali, the manifestation of marvels, our helper in difficulty. Every anxiety and sorrow will end through your guardianship. Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Sister Alize, for that beautiful recitation. Sister Alize touched upon with her lines of poetry the concept of when she said, "You cannot be enshrined within golden walls." Again, speaking to the fact that Imam Ali alayhi salam, his personality, his life was not limited to a time or a place, and in fact, he was a personality, an ideal for all times and all places. Jazakallah. Thank you, Sister Alize. We'd now like to move over on to our last poet of the night, who will wrap up our second poetry series. But before I invite this brother up, I'd like to give a quick intro and a summary of some background about him. Brother Hamoud Mubarak is a lawyer by profession and a poet by choice. When he's not negotiating contracts, he's setting his pen on fire whenever the mood strikes. An advocate of truth, defender of justice, and storyteller for his communities, Pen Moods has performed for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the president of the Raptors, Masai Ujiri, and the mayor of Toronto, John Tory. In addition, Moods has launched campaigns supported by the Los Angeles Lakers and has been featured in Complex, Sportsnet, and many more. His captivating energy has gained Moods audiences as a public speaker with American Express, the City of Toronto, the York Region District School Board, and Canada's Elite Development League, to name a few. However, his passion lies in speaking with students and inspiring the next generation to pick up the pen to express themselves. With that, I would like to introduce you to the people's poet, Brother Hamoud Mubarak, also known as Pen Moods. Let's invite him up with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brother, can you help me out for a second?
If you're not projecting your voice, then can you just move it up?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First, I'd like to begin by acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for providing us with the opportunity to celebrate, demonstrate the love we have for our Ahlul Bayt, especially our commander of the faithful, Imam Ali alayhi salam. Ya Ali. So I say this specifically because when we look around the world, So many of our Shia brothers and sisters are persecuted simply for holding this love of our Ahlul Bayt in their hearts. So we must recognize the beauty that we have here today to celebrate this incredible individual. May Allah grant these communities the strength and resilience to continue to persevere until they reach peace, inshallah. So the name of a piece that I would like to perform today is called Conflictions. But before I do so, I would like to provide my tafsir, if you will, behind its inception. So I wrote this piece 2 years ago, at the cusp of the pandemic, off the back of a conversation with one of my close friends, whose name is Ali Soulful, who's also an incredible artist, Iraqi Shia brother, which is why I'm wearing his sweater today to honor him. Ironically, Ali Soulful in the day of our wilayat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And I want to do this because to help give you context and understanding of why these words were written, so when I do perform it, it sits a little deeper within your hearts. In our conversation, we were discussing how we find challenges being Muslims in this Western world today, and how we are representing our identity to the world, right? Specifically because of the challenges that we face as students, as professionals, the social challenges that we face, the challenges that we face amongst our peers, as well as political pressures. And the premise of this piece is to inspire us to drop these conflictions and to hold the love of our Ahlul Bayts, our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our love for our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in our hearts, because the only person that we're going to answer to at the end of the day is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not the peers who are pulling us into different corners, not to the media who's disgracing us for the hijabs that we wear, for the way that we demonstrate our prayers and our love, or the way that we carry ourselves within our communities. So the reason why I chose this specific piece today to share, because I was blessed with the opportunity to go for Umrah and Ziyarah this past month. Alhamdulillah. It was the first time I got to go and visit Medina, Mecca, Iraq, Syria, and I would like to describe it as a transformational life experience. And I say this because it's not until you visit these lands do you then know who the people that we're praying towards and celebrating. When I was in Medina, and I went to visit our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when I was walking to his zari for the first time, I was actually incredibly nervous. Because what do you say to the best of creation? Our brother perfectly said, I send our salams and hope for you to reply. In that moment, the only thing I knew how to say was salam. But as I was walking, I was shivering. I was stumbling over words in my head because what do you say to this individual? What do you say to this man? We talk about being starstruck. We see the Drakes, the J. Coles, Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi. But what about the best of the best? And then alhamdulillah, I was granted with the opportunity a few weeks later to pray beside the hero of our religion, one of our heroes, Imam Ali alayhi salam. And when I was in his masjid, beside his shrine, I felt the weight of this hero. Because we all know him as Asadullah, sword of Allah, the lion of Allah. We know him as a champion on these battlefields. We know him as an incredible contributor to the linguistics of Arabic. He was an incredibly well-rounded individual. So after going to these places, visiting these individuals, How could I come home and return here with these conflictions still in my heart, not knowing how I'm going to represent myself to the world? Because at the end of the day, I know that I am a Muslim, a mu'min, a lover of this Ahlul Bayt, and that I can no longer give in to the challenges, the peer pressures, the social pressures. So inshallah, when I came home, I wanted to speak to this piece today because I wanted to infuse this same love within our youth. Today I hear the Sheikh, our sister here, Sophia, who's the namesake of my mother, so I feel the love of my mother with me right now. Speaking towards families, family planning, raising our children. And when we were in Najaf, we met Sayyid Sistani, may Allah grant him a long life. And the number one point he kept speaking to us for 15 minutes, we need to give this love of our Ahlul Bayt, of our religion, to our youth, because they are our future. You are our future, young brother. Ahmed, you are our future, young brother. To everybody in this crowd who's under the age of 20, above the age of 20, don't even matter, you are the future. It's incredibly important to have this courage and this strength within our hearts, so that we no longer ask ourselves the question, why is it always a leap of faith when I talk about faith? Why am I at odds when I talk about God? Hiding myself from myself until I no longer know myself is a test in itself. Choosing which image to portray is a strain on the mental health. Which side am I going to pride? Which tide am I going to ride? Seems like I'm more afraid of your words than his chastisement. Let that sink in. But I'm not here to talk about fear, but to highlight his mercy closer to me than my jugular vein. So when I pray, I know he heard me. My sustenance, my risk is what he ensures me. I'm not perfect. Oftentimes I slip and take the wrong turn. But one thing's for certain. I'm just a humble man, a humble mu'min, a lover of this Ahlul Bayt, a lover of Imam Ali alayhi salam, who's trying to live life and enjoy this journey. So let's drop our conflictions and keep our faith strong and enjoy this journey. So may Allah as a collective grant us with the ability to break the chains of conflictions, to walk in the path of Imam Ali alayhi salam, to walk in the path of our Ahlul Bayt, so that we can reach when we one day meet our Maker in the best of ways. So now when you're allowed us the salawats from this masjid, so the entire world can feel our energy, please recite the salawats, inshallah khair. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's it.
Jazakallah, Brother Hamoud, for that powerful, motivational, and moving poetry, as well as the story that you presented before you were reading out your poetry. Can we please have one more loud salawat for all of our poets? To all of our poets, Jazakallah, and thank you for those beautiful words honoring the life and qualities of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam. Moving forward in the program, our second panel discussion is centered on exemplifying the qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam in business and tech. And here to speak to us on this topic and implement it in our day-to-day lives, we have Brother Siraj Ali, Brother Qasim Abbas, and Brother Rahman Abidi, as well as our panelist, Brother Ali Hirji. To introduce this panel and the panelists, I'd request you all please shift your attention to the screens at the front of the hall for a brief introduction and bio on our panelists tonight.
The Mahdi Youth's Imam Ali Conference, brought to you by the Mahdi Youth Society.
Tonight's second panel discussion will be focused on
exemplifying the qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam in business and tech. We all hear success stories of entrepreneurs and business leaders, but have we heard of any that relate to the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam and the values that he stood for? In challenging business environments, it is crucial to exemplify qualities such as patience, integrity, and bravery. This panel will focus on the qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam that local business leaders have exemplified and used to excel in their careers. We will be hearing from the experiences of our three panelists, Brother Siraj Ali, Brother Qasim Abbas, and Brother Ruman Abadi. Brother Qasim Abbas is an award-winning senior management consultant within Deloitte Canada's technology strategy and transformation practice. Qasim's primary focus is driving business and technology alignment to help CIOs and business executives develop business-led technology strategy. His work largely consists of reviewing and developing IT strategy and technology operating model design to help both private and public sector clients ensure they are well positioned with regards to the ever-evolving role of technology within organizations. Qasim has also received his MBA from the Schulich School of Business, and prior to pivoting into the world of business and technology, he received his bachelor's degree in anthropology. Brother Siraj Ali is an electronic engineer with more than 3 decades of cross-industry experience. Currently, he is running SciComm Technology Solutions as a managing partner. SciComm provides healthcare solutions and audio-visual system integration. Siraj joined SciComm in the year 1999 as a project manager. In the year 2002, he was promoted to senior project manager to manage medium to large accounts. In the year 2012, he acquired a 50% share of SciComm and became the managing partner. He oversees the entire operation, including creating business plans, developing sales and marketing strategies, forecasting and executing sales targets, hiring and training entrepreneurs, managing large projects, managing the sales and deployment team, and managing assets and liabilities. And last but not least, we have Brother Ruman Abadi. Ruman is a senior manager with Deloitte. He studied math and statistics at the University of Toronto and has been working in the field of business and technology strategy and transformation for the last 20 years. He started his career in business process outsourcing, moved into banking, and has since been in the consulting space. He has advised some of the largest and most complex organizations in Canada on customer experience transformation and presently leads the future of service practice for Deloitte. Moderating this discussion will be Brother Ali Khirji. Ali has over 15 years of experiencing developing and leading software development, AI, and cybersecurity programs. He specializes in applied research programming at Durham College's Center for Cybersecurity Innovation and the AI Hub, along with lecturing at academic institutions across Canada. He is the host of the Power Hour with CyberX, In the Node with Kaspersky, and Tech Talks with Durham College. Ali focuses on ROI, return on imagination. Ali encourages his students, partners, and listeners to explore the possibility of innovation with AI, blockchain, and programming in cybersecurity. Ali is also pursuing his PhD at York University. Let's invite our amazing panelists and moderator to the front with a loud salawat.
Now it's on me.
All right, you guys good to go?
Sure.
All right, you can all hear me okay? All right, this is gonna be fun. All right, so assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So first things first, I'm probably very famous for all the wrong reasons here. I'm known as that guy who always comes in right at the end of Masayib when Matam is about to start, and then I leave right after Matam ends. Not by choice, but because of the fact that my life has taken me down that pattern. You might also know me as that person who made famous wearing an ajrak with black shalwar kameez. And the funny thing is, I'm not Punjabi, I'm Khoja, which obviously threw a lot of people off, but here I am. And Asad bhai, it's a pleasure and an honor to be in front of you after a very long time, thanks to Mr. and Mrs. COVID. But it is my lifelong dream to get you to read one Ashra in Punjabi, coming soon to a bargain near you. All right, so all of the introductions have already been done, but the objective of today is to take the next 35 to 40 minutes. I know it's cold, you're all toiling here. The idea is to take the next 35 to 40 minutes to look at tech, to look at business, and understand one simple question, which I often have to ask myself when I engage in lecturing, when I engage in consulting, or whatever else have you. And that is, genuinely, is Imam Ali good for business? It's a very difficult question. For a very, very long time in my career, I did not visibly portray myself with my beliefs. I didn't wear my rings anywhere. I kind of hid that identity until something happened in 2018, 2019, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But I realized the importance of me in my position being an ambassador for the values that we embody within these centers. So for the next 35 to 40 minutes, you'll hear less from me and you'll hear more from these panelists on how they embody the values of Imam Ali in everything that they do. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, but not the way you were introduced in the bio. Everybody knows what you've achieved. But if you can tell me one thing about Imam Ali that inspires you when you work in whatever elements you're working in. Siraj, we'll start with you.
Okay, let me see what I can do. So what was, can you repeat your question again? Let's see.
What aspect of Imam Ali really contributes to your approach when you're working in business?
I think the one aspect is Imam Ali has said that the value of a person is in its expertise and knowledge. So Imam Ali is asking his follower to be a valuable person to the society. That means Imam Ali is asking us to be on our toes, upgrading our skills and our knowledge and our expertise. So I think that will be the one thing that I will try to emulate.
I think that's a very important introduction because he used the word value. And I very often tell this to my students that people know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. And you need to know the value of what you bring to the table when you are schooled in this school of thought. So we're going to try and unpack that a little bit as we go forward. Roman, I'll turn it over to you. Same question from your perspective.
Sure. So I think like one of the things that I talk a lot about as a consultant, as a management consultant, is getting uncomfortable. So what we do in consulting is we're advising executives, some of them who often have more work experience than the number of years that I've been alive. But even in those situations, they choose to come to us and they listen to our advice and they answer our questions and they show us their information and take us seriously. And you know, part of consulting is you're never going to know everything inside and out that you need to be talking about, and that not only you need to be talking about, but you need to be an expert at. And not only that, you need to be an expert to the extent that somebody who is a CIO with 40 years of experience is going to be able to say, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about and can talk about my problem better than I could describe it myself. So one of the things that really sticks out to me about Imam Ali is that he was persistently volunteering. Even like at the very beginning where he was young, it was Dawatul Ashira, and the Prophet had, invited his close people, and he's saying, who's going to help me? And Imam Ali was like, right here, you know. And he didn't get that first interview. He's like, no, put your hand down. And then it's like, who's going to help me? And he's like, no, I'm right here again, right? And eventually his application got accepted there, right? And then even if you kind of look at the rest of, you know, the history, like if you look at the Battle of the Trench, right, where the army has surrounded the camp, and this guy who's the equivalent of 1,000 warriors, Amr ibn Abdul, like, you know, he's out there, he's saying like, who's out there that can do this? And the Prophet's like, okay, who's going to go take care of this guy, right? And Imam Ali's like, I'm here, right? So the one thing that sticks out, and you know, like in the other stories as well, you see Imam Ali kind of having the courage to stand up, even if nobody else was standing up and speak, and kind of persistently volunteering, right? Like when I put a job application in, it doesn't get accepted, I put another one in, I put another one in, I put another one in, eventually I get accepted, right? So that's one thing that sticks out to me.
You know, well put. And you know, as I was listening to you, and I'm going to try and pick on very important words that you can use, just as little sound bites, hopefully as some notes that you can take as you're building your own path forward. You know, two really important things. Firstly, this thing about being uncomfortable. And I say this all the time to my students, get comfortable with being a little uncomfortable. You know, that moment when somebody tells you, I face this, go and build this decentralized identity system to authenticate the students. I don't even know how to spell decentralized. This was in 2018, but I figured it out. And the most important thing that I can tell you that I'm hearing from this conversation is your attitude at the table. You know, I see Naki here as well, who's also been an academic himself. One of the things we always look at is often you hire for skill and fire for fit. You can teach people technical, but if you don't have the right attitude at the table and persistence, you know, I can't teach you that. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's taking it back to the basics and being brilliant at the basics. And last but not the least, I'm finishing my PhD at York University. One fine day, I'll get there. But you've done your MBA. I know how tough that ride is. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what about Imam Ali, and I'm more interested in this as well, what about Imam Ali got you to go and do your MBA and then step into the dark side of consulting?
Good question. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So like, firstly, acknowledging the elephant in the room, there's three incredibly talented and amazing people here, and in the audience that I can see. So I'm nothing like, I'm not as nearly as accomplished as these folks here, but maybe I can provide a different perspective here, because when I hear the question of what do you find in Imam Ali that's inspiring when it comes to business or something like that, and my head naturally doesn't go to like the day-to-day work I do, but it goes to like culture, especially when you're on the come up, like compared to these folks who are incredibly established, incredibly successful, but I'm still at a point in my career where I've done a bit, but I have a long way to go. And so when you think about being on the come up, when you're in this culture, especially in the MBA, where you're surrounded by these people that worship work, that worship getting a better job, they'll move halfway across the world. Like I knew people in my MBA that missed the birth of their daughter so they could do their MBA in Canada. And then like, it's not like they had some financial strains or something like that. And so when you're in this sort of cultural milieu, what you find is that steadfastness is the most important thing, being principled. And that's what I get from Imam Ali, like day and night, like every story, like, cause they gave us these questions before this panel and they're like, come up with stories or quotes you like or know about Imam Ali. And everything for me was just steadfastness. Like be principled in a world that's corrupted all around you. Everyone around you is like going in the wrong direction, whether it's in an obvious way or an indirect way or an insidious way. Be principled. And that was that's always been the hardest thing. And so, sorry, can I keep going or?
Floor's all yours, buddy.
Sorry. Yeah, so it was just like constantly just steadfastness, like not even in terms of, once again, the day-to-day work, because like I'm not going to go out and commit like frauders, like a Ponzi scheme at work or something. But like it's the fact that like when you're at work, right, you got to go to these events. When you're in your MBA, you got to go to these networking events. They have alcohol there, they have women there, they have God knows what there. And then when you get up to go pray namaz in the middle of the event in your suit in the corner, everyone's like, what the hell's wrong with you? You missed this big guy who's going to give everyone an interview. And like you're constantly hit with that. And then coming out of that, just being like, no, I'm going to stay my course, no matter what path anyone else takes is the hardest thing to do. And so with Imam Ali, like, especially in the latter portion of his life when he didn't have the Prophet with him, just seeing these political actors that are just willing to do anything, willing to put anything on the line to get the power and wealth they want. I feel like that resonates the most with me. So
Yeah, no, well put. And I think it's always the right time to do the right thing, right? And I
Sure.
think this piece of what you just mentioned, you're at that networking party and it's time for namaz. It's very common that people get this mental hernia, right? What are you doing? You're going against the curve. And I think it takes a lot of strength to do that. And I do want to unpack this because I'll be brutally honest here. I wasn't able to do that. It was not easy because promotions were on the line, your reputation was on the line, and yes, I do pray namaz, but it was very difficult to find that space to make it through. And I want to unpack that just a little bit. So thank you for that introduction. Suraj, I'm going to come to you. And as you can already tell, I'm not following any script.
Sure.
I'm just going to let it go and let's see where we land.
Sure.
If I ask something that you're not comfortable answering, just say so.
That's
I will
right.
also say this to the youngsters that are here. If we use a word that you don't understand, we used milieu, or I said the word decentralized or Ponzi scheme, just put up your hand and ask me. There's absolutely no issue. If you ask me, interrupt me, you probably have something better to say than I do. But Suraj, I want to come to you with an interesting question because I was hearing your bio and you were a project manager in the firm, did very well, saw the opportunity, and then you bought into 50% of the business. When you buy into 50% of the business, the revenue and the bottom line now falls on you.
Yeah.
How do you look at revenue and bottom line from the lens of Imam Ali?
See, I want to add to the previous part that that you mentioned about unpacking and the issues, and I will admit to that this is an issue. The alcohol and wine and the Christmas lunch, they are an issue. So that is one of the reasons why Imam Ali is also, and even if you see Islamic way, they are asking people to get into business. So when I joined, I saw our sales guy will distribute the wine bottle. They will do the lunch, and then we used to have Christmas lunch, and then it used to be like a food that we don't eat. So the advantage is if you come into business, if you own it, then you can change it. So now what we did, we changed the wine bottle to the fruit baskets. So we give to our clients fruit baskets. To the Christmas lunch, we change it to the kandahar and the bamians. You see, you need to gain power, but the power will come with your steadfastness, as the brother said, and with your determination. So, but you got to be into this thing, but your mind should be set to the higher level. And once you come to that level, then you can make some changes. And of course, these changes it's not detrimental, it's healthier. And even the masses are right now, they're driving towards this healthy eating habits, and so it all helps us to cultivate and nurture those habits. So that was the first part. Now you can repeat the second one and I'll come to the second part.
can I unpack it too?
Absolutely,
Sure.
go for it.
So I think Brother Suraj unpacked it, so maybe I'll organize it in the cabinets. So like one thing I want to talk about is we live in a situation where we believe that God is in charge. He's on the throne, things aren't happening by accident. He's not like, oh my gosh, I forgot about namaz, and there's alcohol there at that event, right? So nothing that is going to happen with regards to your success is a surprise to God. So we have to believe that the risk is not coming from the guy that's giving a speech and wants you to drink from the wine bottle, right? We have to believe that we are in a value system where God is the one that's in charge. And even if you end up not being there when that interview was meant to happen, it's not like God's gonna be like, oh my gosh, like he took namaz time at the wrong time, he took it too far, and now he doesn't get the job, right? No, he's gonna find a different way, and maybe that job wasn't the one for you, and you're gonna find something better. I think it's something we have to learn. It's easier to say that we have tawakkul, right? We have trust in God, but the reality is, when all the pressure around you makes it seem like, okay, you need to be there at that event, you need to do this, you need to behave in this way. I think what you have to do is you have to believe that, I believe in my value system and I trust God. And actually it's the opposite. Because I decided to go and pray at that time, or because I decided to make a decision that, I didn't take the bribe or whatever it is, based on that, I'm going to see success on the other side of that.
Yep. So the second part was, can you?
How do you look at revenue and bottom line from Imam Ali's perspective?
So from Imam Ali's perspective, I think Imam Ali is encouraging us to. So let me give you one story of Imam Ali, which was quite interesting when I was preparing for this, and I came up across that. So Imam Ali bought a barren land outside Medina. This was a barren land. So this is pretty much like a Silicon Valley during those days. So buying a land, but the barren land has no value. It was penniless. But Imam Ali bought it, and then he identified a place where he can dig for water because he wanted to do agriculture. So you need to know where exactly the water will be there. So he found a spot and he started digging and digging and digging, but there was no sight, nothing. There was no trace of water there. And then the people from the neighboring villages, they all come and they were trying to convince Imam Ali to leave it. It's not going to happen. Right? But Imam was determined. He persevered. Day after day, he kept on going and going until his axe got wet with the water. So he got it. Now, once the water comes in a land, barren land, that value goes up 100 times. The value was right on. Now, people started murmuring, oh my God. So the first part is, he's teaching us a perseverance. You be on it. Don't give up. Just be on it. It will come. The success will follow, right? The second part, which is very hard part, was that people started commenting. One of the comment was, oh, because he's generous, Allah has rewarded him. The second comment was, you see, now his life and his descendant life is fully set. They don't have to worry. They have got a ample land over here, and it's not barren. It's got water over there. But Imam Ali, what he did, he donated the whole land in charity. Right? This is what he did. So our focus should be that we should look at our bottom line so that we can contribute to our community, to our society. With that intention, however higher you go, there is no limit. And then we have to, ultimately, you see now the problem as we see over here, we had one program yesterday for the elders, one program today for the youth. Now this program could be together because there was so many important things in the family part, which was more towards parenting. And the parents were missing today because of that, because the space constraint. We need a better center so that all of them can be accommodated. So that needs finance, and the finance will come from you all getting into business and bringing up your bottom line. So you will look at that way, and then we go as high as possible. Did that answer your question?
No, absolutely. And again, I'm just going to try and summarize every 30 seconds what you're hearing so you can take some quick notes. Two very important things. The first thing is the aspect of community in business. No one person is an island. You know, when Suraj mentioned that, we take business now to Kandahar or Bamyan, etc. If you are getting into the food business, being part of community and having, for example, a bureau or a chamber of commerce here makes for a lot of opportunities. One thing I encourage all of you to start looking at is how, for example, the US dollar gained its supremacy and how now you're seeing a lot of countries looking at digital currencies. Why? Why does, for example, Russia and India have such a promising relationship? And why are they looking towards digital currencies? Because of community and what you can do when you start to trade amongst like-minded individuals. So that's a very important thing. The second thing, which I enjoyed listening from Roman as well, is this aspect of when you are looking at the bottom line, you have to always understand that it's not only about what floats your boat as well. One of the things that you're going to see a lot happening, especially if you hear from your peers who are leaving certain jobs, it's because of pay disparity. CEOs, execs making a certain amount, but everybody else not even close to what is called the sunshine list. And as a business owner, it is your responsibility to create that parity. And that is something you do see in how Imam Ali managed his time, managed his workers, as you just heard. I'm going to come to you, Qasim, very quickly. And this is a question that we discussed a little bit through the chat, and that is the question of tech. With tech, one of the things, for example, with AI, there's this concept of AI is all-knowing, omnipotent, singularity. And when you work with AI, it kind of gives you the sense of, I can do anything. Because I kind of can know anything about anybody with how powerful these tools are. How does Imam Ali help ground yourself when you're dealing with really, really powerful tech?
Great question. I think if we look to his life, and that was actually one of the challenges in preparing for this, is like you look at all this crazy technology today and you're like, how does this relate to our Imam's life, right? But if you look at the core principles of these things, you know, the content changes, but the stories and the lessons always stay the same. And so when you talk about this idea of being all powerful, you know, if you have tech on your side, you can pretty much do anything. And we see that sort of play out in an economic way as well today. When we look at Elon Musk, someone like that can just buy one of the biggest platforms in the world where discourse is really like not just had, but pretty much owned. So you see like these tech moguls, whether it's with the actual technology that itself or the wealth that it affords them, that you see people sort of wielding it as if they're God, that they can control themselves, that they can control the world. And I think the answer becomes that, you know, what we see from our Imam's life is that, you know, at least for us as Muslims, we believe that he had like, you know, I don't know what the word is, like I think it's the term Malana would be like wilayat taqwini, right? Like he could do like magical stuff almost. And so, yeah, how do I know?
Don't look at me, bro. Like, you look at me, I'm supposed to translate. I failed madrasa. That's it.
I pointed at him.
All right, good.
Yeah. So like they can do cool stuff. So like if anyone can control the world, it's them, right? But you see the humbleness there, and I think that's what we need to realize. And I think Roman Bhai sort of touched on this as well. Like, well, you have to realize that like your employer isn't giving you a risk, or like you going out and doing this shady thing to get that thing. That's not what it's giving you. That might be the content. That's what you're seeing, but ultimately it's Allah that manages it. So even someone as incredible as Imam Ali, who, you know, we believe could do everything, and we believe that 100%. Even him, he humbled himself to the extent that he did, right? And when he was in power, you hear these stories about him. The way he would dress, I think there's a story that goes something like, you know, when you enter a town as a leader and you leave, you shouldn't be wearing new clothes, something like that. And whether, I'm sorry if that's not like 100% accurate. All right, lit. But like that kind of thing, that like when it comes to being the wali and the imam of our time, he's the best. But then when it comes to himself, he's so ascetic. He holds himself so to such a high standard of being humble. And I think, you know, that when you have that level of power in whatever capacity, whether in the household with regards to a specific piece of technology, wealth, economic power, you have to sort of continue to see yourself as a servant of God. And, you know, I apologize. I don't mean to preach or proselytize at all. That's not my job. But you didn't ask me about operating models, so I gotta talk about.
Fair enough. No, well put. And I'm gonna take what you said, and Brother Roman, I'm gonna come to you, because there's a question that's been lurking in my mind, and that has to do with something that you said, which is this aspect of power. Now, I'm gonna show that I know a few quotes from Imam Ali too, and one of them is, "Speak only when your words are more beautiful than silence." Now, Roman, when you know so much about certain tech, certain aspects on economics, etc., and you are in a room with CISOs and CIOs, so on and so forth, sometimes you are in situations where you know they're getting it blatantly wrong and they're absolutely kiboshed an idea, and you've got to step in. How do you manage your communications in a humble way where you get the message across without necessarily telling somebody you kind of don't know what you're talking about? How does Imam Ali influence your communications pattern?
Okay, so
I'm not following a script, bro.
No.
I didn't even know you were on this panel. That was the fun part.
That wasn't on the Word document you sent, right?
I didn't send that. Who sent that?
So let's talk about a couple of things, right? So I think the first thing is, like, with Imam Ali, what we believe, it's about principle-centered leadership. Yeah. So I think, like, you talked about revenue and bottom line, right? Like, is Imam Ali good for business? And actually, there's a lot of stories about Imam Ali, because he did have to manage revenue, because when he came in charge of the treasury, when he was the caliph, that was one of his responsibilities. And one of the stories, like, I think maybe you guys have heard it in Sunday school or something, but there's this candle, right? The candle's burning, and he's like sitting there, like, writing about the treasury and stuff, and then these two businessmen come with kind of a shady deal, right? Like, they want to, Talha and Zubair come, and they want to try to convince them to do something to get them, like, kind of a trade, right? A negotiation. And what he does is, like, as soon as they come, he puts out the candle, and they're like, what the heck, right? Like, we just got here, you turn the lights out, right? I'm paraphrasing. I think what the heck wasn't there. They said, like, how come you turned out the lights? The Arabic equivalent, right? And he basically said, like, listen, this candle is not my candle. It's from the treasury, like, it's purchased from the funds of the treasury. And this is not a state affair. Like, you just came here to have a personal conversation with me. So I have an ethical obligation not to misuse the funds from the state. So I think like that is actually very important, because when we're in the workplace, we're kind of custodians of the company that we work for. It could be a Tim Hortons where you're opening the Tim Hortons and you have the key and you're giving free donuts to your friends. Or it could be in a business where you're negotiating a contract, you're giving contracts to companies. Like, are you negotiating them fairly, or are you giving them to your friends and things like that? So I think the one thing that sticks out for me is, you know, the idea of earning from halal, right? From lawful money. And it goes back to that, like, you know, God is still in charge. Like, it's not that because I didn't do the shady deal, I'm not going to get the $5 million or whatever it is. You're going to get the $5 million. You might not get it from this deal. You're going to get it from a halal mean. So I think that's kind of the piece that I wanted to comment on. But I think your question was like, how does it impact my communication? And I think it goes back to that, actually, because quite often in business, you have many levels, right? And you have like the C-level executives, and you have like the EVPs, and you have the SVPs, and you have the VPs. And sometimes you have somebody in a very junior position who is a project manager or like maybe like a PMO lead that has the book. Like, they know how to get the money. And sometimes it's easier to just say whatever they need you to say. So quite often companies hire consulting companies to bring in a third party that says what they want to say to the rest of their organization, right? So there's a saying in consulting that don't give a recommendation or make a presentation or say something that you can't justify to the CEO of the organization. Because you might get that contract, right, in the short term, but if it's the wrong advice, eventually that person's going to get replaced. Eventually someone's going to find out, and eventually you might be put in front of the CEO to explain that. And I think like we have a CEO as well, right? So this concept for me kind of works out because we have a CEO, which is God. Like, ultimately, you don't want to do something that isn't aligned with your values and principles, because eventually you have that CEO to respond to. So from a communication perspective, in my experience, sometimes you do have to disagree with people. Sometimes you do have to tell people that this is not the right thing to do. And in consulting, we say you have to tackle at multiple levels of the organization, right? So sometimes the person that you have to tell the story to, right? Like that the baby's ugly or whatever, that person may not want to hear that. And you have to kind of do it in such a way where you have to do it respectfully. You have to kind of help them understand why it's important. You have to help them see the bigger picture. Personally, I don't like to do blind escalation, so I'm not going to go behind Qasim's back and say like Qasim doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Like it's not the right thing to do. Like, I would rather go to that person and say, Qasim, you and I disagree on this. I think it's not the right thing to do. If we can't come to a resolution, let's both take it to our manager, as an example, right? So it builds trust. It kind of shows that you're acting with integrity. And quite often in that interaction, you end up coming to an agreement, right? And it's like that there's a story of like Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they're doing wuzu, and they see an old man that's doing it incorrectly. And they're like, oh, can you help us figure out which one's doing it wrong? And they're both doing it the same way, right? And the man realizes it's part of the process. So I'd say like respectful communication, giving good counsel even to your opponents. So like, don't kind of take the short end of it, treating others in a way that you want to be treated themselves. And over time, you know, eventually it'll come back to you. Like even with Imam Ali, like he wasn't the first caliph. And he was like, okay, whatever. And then eventually, like when they got to a problem that was complex enough and you know, the first 3 business archetypes failed, eventually they came back to him, right? So often I find that's the case. And like, I did a project last year with the company, like I won't name the company, but in the project, it was like a Salesforce project. So they were like, Salesforce is the center of the world, right? So like all the recommendations were implement Salesforce right away. And that's really what the person wanted. And this company, that the product wasn't the right for the problem, right? The right product for the problem. So I took an unpopular opinion. Like I said, hey, like, sure, you're going to get some benefit out of Salesforce, but really you have a whole bunch of other things you need to solve. And unless you solve those, there's no point going and implementing Salesforce, because eventually you're going to have to do rework later. And you know what? They didn't like it. They didn't give me the next phase of the contract. I moved on to my next project. And then what happened is, like 6 months later, that CDO got let go. And a new CDO came in. And the new CDO was like, okay, we found this report, like, go find this guy. So, like, they hunt me down. They're like, did you write this report? Like, tell us about this, right? So, like, eventually, if you're doing something that's not the right thing to do, it's not being truthful, it's not the right thing for your client, it's going to come back and bite you. And I think it's the same in life as well. Like, if you're doing something that goes against your values, eventually it's going to come back and bite you. And that ultimate CEO is going to make it right. And in the short term, it might look like, I didn't get that contract, but in the long term, you're going to get a much bigger contract.
Sure.
No, very well put. And Mahdi, there goes your sponsorship opportunity from Salesforce. It's not happening, but there's something really, really important. And again, I do encourage all of you, come and speak to these individuals. They have a lot of stories and narratives that they can share with you, which are really, really important. Lessons from the field, as I like to call them in class. 2 very quick things in 30 seconds. Number 1, I use the word communication specifically. And I say this to my students all the time at the master's level as well, especially when I send them to MBA competitions. When you're communicating, often you are listening to reply rather than listening to understand. And Zen knows exactly what I'm talking about because we went to York together and this was something that was taught to us. Listen to understand. Get into a practice sometimes of taking notes. There's no harm in having that pen and paper, taking notes, drawing it out. What did that person say? And take a moment to reply. Don't just simply, without understanding, don't reply. Take in the process. Go through whatever theories you know. And it's fine to tell someone, I'm going to come back to you about something. It's fine to say you don't know something. Know what you don't know and walk away at times. Rather, I'll tell you this, and all of you know this, I moderate a lot of panels. I'm not going to name it, but on Monday I was on one. And this individual was talking about something related to security. And I can tell you, it was so far from the truth, it wasn't even funny. But I couldn't say anything because the person kept talking. Stats were wrong. The data was wrong. And I have 300 people sitting there listening to this. What do you want me to do? Now I realize as a moderator, I have a responsibility to change the conversation. I'm going to deal with that person differently. It's very, very important that you know what you're talking about and you understand before you reply. Now, I know we have about 5 more minutes. I have one more question for you, and then the closing question, which I promise will come from the script that was given to us. You mentioned that you came in, took over 50% of the company, changed some of the habits, changed some of the patterns. Out of curiosity, how did people around you take to that? Did it attract employees or did it create some friction?
Wow, this is a very good question. So yes, it was taken. I would say initially there was a little bit of resistance as usual, but when it came across and when they saw the benefit of what we were doing, they all joined the team. And actually, one more important thing was since I was working with them from the beginning, and then I got this, and then they were working with me. So it did not change much for us because we had been as a team. So we had some sort of rapport. We had our relationship with them. So they knew where I was coming from. And actually it was like, so I'm coming from India, as you all know. My background is from India. And in India, the discrimination against Muslim is, I would say, 50% more than what we have in Western countries, right? At least here we have a lot of freedoms and a lot of stuff. So they all, I think it was more understandable, and they knew where I'm coming from, because even before when we used to go, I will never participate in that. So I will, before they start, they will let me know in advance that, okay, if you want to go, you can leave. So I will leave after that, right? So they knew about my habits, and so it wasn't that difficult. I would say it was quite better. There was a little bit of here and there, but it all went really well. Yeah.
All right. Now I know I'm standing in between the last 5 minutes, and Qasim, I'll start with you, and then we'll go in this order. From the Word document, if I can remember it verbatim, tell us one quote of Imam Ali that has inspired or continues to inspire your work as a senior consultant.
Oh, gotta end strong. Okay, so I don't have a quote, I'll be honest. But something happened recently that just moved me, right? So a friend of mine recommended this podcast. It's called Conflicted. So it's like a history podcast. And so they go over certain episodes from historical periods all over the world, Muslim, non-Muslim, everything, right? And so they did a series of episodes on the whole episode in Islamic history after the death of the Prophet, the sort of, if you want to call it, the political issues that arose. And so, you can listen to the podcast. It's apparently really long. I haven't actually listened to it. But if you go on like Google Podcasts and you click on the podcast, this person who did this podcast, who I'm assuming is either atheist, but not Muslim for sure, they went to a bunch of secular sources, maybe Sunni sources, did all this research about these historical figures that were characters in the story, the Prophet, Bibi Fatima, Imam Ali, etc., Muawiyah, whatever. So he looks at them and then he provides a one-liner for each of the individuals that make up this the contents of the story. And so he talks about everyone, gives a quick gist of what they were all about from his understanding, his sort of shallow understanding, you could say. But then when he talks about Imam Ali, he calls him, the son-in-law of the Prophet, Prophet's best friend, brother, and then he ends with this, honorable to a fault. And that moved me, right? It was, 3 or 4 words? And not that we need our love for Imam Ali validated by a non-Muslim for sure, but the fact that this person who's seen countless historical personalities does a podcast about them, read about Islamic history from non-Muslim, non-Shia sources, and was so moved by the honor of Imam Ali in the situations that he was put in, once again, especially after the death of the Prophet, that just really shook me to the core. And that's something that continues to inspire me, that because there's so many times at work, once again, and especially during my MBA, where you were in these positions where come on, just do it, it's fine, just give an inch, it's okay, no one's gonna know. And even people around you would be like, well, you didn't go there, you didn't do this, because even family members, because you need to get a job, you need to pay for things. But then you hear about that, honorable, I keep saying honorable to a fault, meaning that the world will look at you and say, man, this guy's an idiot. And kind of speaks to what Rahman Bhai said as well, that you won't get that contract and be like, this guy is not smart. But then in the long run, when the annals of history look back on you, when the book's been written 1,400 years later, obviously we'll sit here and we'll say Imam Ali is the best. But even some guy who doesn't know who Imam Ali is, who's not Muslim, who's not Shia, doesn't care, will look at his life, even from a non-Shia perspective, and be like, that guy's honorable to a fault. And I think that's pretty amazing.
Very well put. And I think, we were talking about this. I don't know if I was talking to you or someone else. With money, especially with, the careers that they're in, you can talk to them one-on-one or what the payout is on an annual basis. Decent, right? It's quite good.
Not with inflation.
Not with inflation, I get it.
With those interest rate hikes,
all things in perspective, it's pretty decent, all right? And one thing, and I've had to tell myself this, it's very easy, especially when you're in my position, to chase consulting contracts and chase money. The one thing I can tell you, the more you chase money, the faster it runs. And God knows I'm in no interest to run. So that's that. Roman, same question for you. We're really short on time, so mic drop at you, and then one more for Sarah.
Sure. So in consulting, they say there's 2 things that matter: who knows you and what you're known for. And I think the piece that maybe I would leave everyone with is, you get to decide who that is. And whatever you decide is who you're going to become. I grew up in a community that was far less diverse than this community is today. And I just assumed that my tan didn't go away in the wintertime, right? It was very few, the principal ripping the hijab off my sister, that amount of lack of diversity and understanding, right? After September 11th, the principal went on to say, Muslims are good and bad. The majority of them are the good Sunni Muslims, and only there's a few of the bad ones, right? Yes. So that level of understanding. But even what I'll say is, it goes back to, who are you? Who do you want to be, and what are you known for? If you decide that you're going to be a principle-centered person, that's a decision that you make. It's not going to prevent you from having a high-paying job and being successful in your career. If you decide that your family is a priority. On my LinkedIn profile, it says loving father. Every one of my coworkers has seen my son coming in, negotiating how many donuts he can have, asking me to go help him wash in the bathroom or something like that, right? It's a disposition that I've chosen. It hasn't prevented me from excelling in my career. So be known as the person that is willing to face adversity, right? Is able to take on that warrior that's equivalent to 1,000 men, and take on that challenge and build a reputation of being the one that can handle that complex problem. And the opportunities will come, even if you're not the one that's fun to party with and that is giving out wine bottles. Like, I'm horrible. You know, when I finish my projects, I forget about the executive relationships. I'm not sending them gift cards. I'm not sending them Christmas emails. I'm not buying them gifts. But, you know, 5, 10 years later, quite often an executive will hunt me down because they will face a complex problem that they want the same skill that I was able to show. So if the advice that I can give for the young people here is make yourself remarkable from a capability perspective, not just likable from a, you know, partying and spending time and wining and dining with the client. And if you do that, there will be nothing standing in the way of you being the person that you want to be, living a principle-centered life, as well as being successful from a material and career perspective.
Yeah, I think you eloquently put this concept of life consists of 2 days, one that's for you and one that's against. And even those days which, you know, you don't get that contract, there are the days where the project didn't meet those deadlines, those have lessons for you as well. You know, there have been days, you know, 99% of the time, my students love me. You know, they get it. And then there's that one student, happened on Tuesday, who absolutely berates me and will bring down my rate, my prof score like no tomorrow. But there's a lesson in there for me as well, because the truth is, thanks to the pandemic, I was starting to engage with students more through voice notes and through our Slack channels and sending voice notes. Not every student's going to interact that way. And it's a lesson for me as well. Last thing to you, a quote of Imam Ali that really resonates with you.
So I think that there was this letter written by Imam Ali to Malik al-Ashtar, and there, in that letter there is a lot of morals, right? One of the point was Imam Ali was asking Malik al-Ashtar to interact with the subject. So in our terms, I will interpret it as a teamwork, right? So we have to nurture our team, build them up, make sure that they have all the tools required. And so what we have created a flat management whereby the employees can come and interact with anyone. And we have created a small business unit for each employees. So they have their own decision-making abilities. And so that's what the team has to be nurtured. And so Imam Ali is driving towards that. That was one important part. And then the second one, I think Imam Ali in that letter, somewhere down, he also mentioned that give the credit where it is due. So if the employee is doing well, you know, we definitely have to encourage them and make sure that they are taken care of. And I remember one more story of Imam Ali whereby there was this blind man who was begging. And so Imam Ali asks about him. He said, why is he begging? So you go, this guy lost his eye before he had an eye, but he's non-Muslim. He's a Christian person, and he was able before and he was working, but now he's lost his eye, and he has no one, so he's begging. So Imam Ali said to the community, you used him when he was able to deliver to you, and now you have thrown him to the throes. And then Imam Ali decided that he should be paid from the treasury. The social insurance system that we see, it's already existed in that time, and it existed for all. So humanity was required in that case. So these are the few lessons that I have learned, and we have tried to implement in our culture, in our business culture.
Fantastic. And I know that we didn't get to go deep into AI and blockchain and all of those things, but the one thing that I can tell you is that from an Islamic perspective, if you look at something even like coding, there's a lot of value that the Arabic language and even Islam itself brings to, for example, for those of you who are programmers, with how do you work with syntax? Programming works entirely with sentence structures, and knowing not just the logic of syntax, but also context. When to use certain grammars in, let's say, Python, when to use them, when not to use them, etc. That ethic, you can learn a great deal from what you learn here in the Imam Bargas and what you learn in these centers, so on and so forth. You know, obviously, in conclusion, yes, sir.
I just want to add one more point. I know you talk about the failure. So actually failure is an amazing teacher, right? I also failed in my life in my initial phases. When I started my business in India, I failed miserably, right? So failure is an amazing teacher. And I think there was this one interview whereby one of the very successful person was asked, he said, what is the key to the secret to your success? He said, good decision. So then the follow-up question was, how do you make good decision? He said, experience. Then the follow-up question came up, how do we get the experience? He said, wrong decision. So the wrong decision is a step towards a good decision. So that failure should be taken as an example to go further. This should be a very amazing lesson for us. Actually one of the teacher was saying that this is an amazing teacher if you listen to it. If you listen to your failure, you will be successful eventually.
You know what, speaking of teachers, for the elders in the room, I'm sure all of you resonate with the name Allama Talib Johari. And one of the things that he said in Nishtar Park once was, look at the Prophet's life. He never went out there and said, believe in me, I'm a prophet. The first thing that he did, instead of impressing upon everybody his nabuwat, he impressed upon everybody his trustworthiness. And not just anybody, not from anybody else, not from people who give you votes, but from people who are completely anti his position. So what you heard here is that yes, many people may not necessarily be in the same position as you are or the same value system, but with trustworthiness, with ethics, you can go a very, very long way. Thank you everybody for joining. And really to the elders, I really appreciate.
I want to talk about failure too. I want to make a last comment about failure. In consulting, because that's all I know, they say, dream big, fail fast. Dream big, start small, fail fast. So the idea is, imagine doing a lot, but start small, like don't try to accomplish everything, and fail fast. So failure isn't actually a bad thing. It's kind of like an experiment that you do. And just linking it back to Imam Ali, like the value system that we live in is not one where we're not going to face adversity. Like Prophet Ayub, like he lost a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, Hazrat Yusuf, right? Like he was betrayed by his own brothers. Like the queen, like accused him of stuff and so on, right? But actually, our value system is that we believe we have a just God. So if God is going to allow you to suffer through the failure or through the bad experiences, on the other side of that, the pattern is you're going to get double the return. So, after every hardship, there's going to be that ease. And because he's a just God, if he's made you pay $2 when you're suffering through that failure, you're going to have $4 or $10 or $20 on the other side of that. And when it comes to failure, like, every job application I put in isn't going to get accepted. And actually in that adversity is where you end up becoming more skilled and you work harder and you end up refining yourself and become a better person.
Absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for joining us, especially the elders. And Asad Bhai, I really appreciate you being here. Imam Ali says to teach us to learn. And I appreciate all of you embodying the fact that you've taught us a lot, but you're learning with us and engaging with us. And I thank you all for your time. I was about to say a round of applause, but I realized where I am, so I'm not going to do that. But gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody for having us.
Allahumma salli ala
Thank you to our panelists, Brother Siraj Ali, Brother Qasim Abbas, and Brother Rahman Abidi, and Brother Ali Abbas Hirji for that insightful discussion and for enlightening us on how we can be better servants and aim to continue embodying the traits of Imam Ali alayhi salam in our day-to-day lives. Can we please have one more loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad for them and their efforts? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As we near the end of the program today, I'd like to take a moment to thank you all for joining us to celebrate the birth of Imam Ali alayhi salam and learning about some ways to implement his way of life into our own. A special thank you to all our amazing poets, panelists, and moderators. We truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today and take part in our program. It's been a night full of insightful discussion, and on behalf of the entire Mahdi Youth team, we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Before I pass the mic on to Brother Ashar Syed, I wanted to take a moment to stress the importance of programs such as this. As programs of this format provide a diverse platform that examines less focused on the aspects of the life and lessons of our A'immah. And I wanted to give a special shout out to the Mahdi Youth team and make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the wasila of Imam Ali alayhi salam, grant you and your team the motivation and resources to continue to hold programs such as this. With that, we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and I would like to now invite Brother Ashar Syed up to the podium from the Mahdi Youth Society team to say a few words. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Dear respected elders, Asad Bhai, my brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you for making tonight so special. So tonight, the Mahdi Youth Society team wanted to try something different. So in the past, for these type of events, we would host an event called Mic Night, an open stage platform where individuals such as reciters, poets, would come up and recite pieces in honor of Imam Ali alayhi salam. These nights would be powerful. They would allow us to resonate and connect with the values that Imam Ali alayhi salam stood for. So we thought, as an executive team, that hey, you know what? Let's take this idea and let's build upon it. So after examining various different program structures, styles, and formats out there, we were impressed by this conference style structure, and we thought, hey, you know what? Let's maybe give it a try. And that's what you all saw tonight. And there were a lot of people that made this possible. And this type of conference style structure, we wanted to implement, the concept of like having different discussions, different panels, different panelists, different topics, and of course, having our poetry and recitation scattered throughout the entire program. And we wanted to focus this all into one common theme. And that theme was manifesting Imam Ali alayhi salam's values. To all the volunteers that made tonight possible, let's recite a loud salawat, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Also, to my young parents out there, don't worry, we haven't forgotten you. I know in the past, we, in a way, underserved you. We know how challenging it was for you to come and attend our events and take informative content from it. Because we understood that how hard it is for you to bring your kids in here and take care of them at the same time as you were attending these programs. So we structured this program in a way that it caters towards your needs. Your needs of learning and growing from the content provided in this type of conference, all while allowing your kids to be kids and having them enjoy the time of their lives learning about the same inspirational figure we're here learning about. A huge thank you to the Al-Mahdi Moms and Tots group for the support in this initiative, and a special thank you to Sister Baneen Zahra, Sister Fasiya Fatima, and Sister Marzia Mustahibi. Last but not least, a huge thank you to our reciters, our poets, our panelists, and our amazing MC, Brother Zain Rizvi. Zain Bhai, if anyone should replace Morgan Freeman, it should be you, bro. You're just that good. I would now like to take a moment and invite our esteemed panelists and moderators up one by one to accept a small token of appreciation on behalf of the Mahdi Youth Society team. In order to, I'd like to invite Asad Bhai to present these gifts. So let's invite up Asad Bhai with a loud salawat, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Right the front here, Asad Bhai. So let's first of all invite the star of the night, the one and only sister that we had as a panelist, Sister Safiya Rizvi. So Sister Safiya Rizvi, please come up and accept your small token of appreciation. Let's invite her up with a loud salawat. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Next, let's invite up our brothers Siraj Ali, brother Qasim Abbas, brother Rahman Abdi, and brother Ali Hirji. Let's invite them up with a loud salawat. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And hey, like we can't forget about the Morgan Freeman replacement. Brother Zain Rizvi, come up here with a loud salawat. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. Nasabai from us to you. Thank you very much, Nasabai. Just a quick few announcements. The Mahdi Youth Society, in collaboration with the Executive Committee, is excited to bring back our weekly Thursday night programs. We are bringing back these parallel program structures in which we will have Urdu programs taking place right here in the men's hall, and an English program led by Sheikh Abu Sumaya, formerly known as Sheikh Vinay, taking place in the ladies' hall. The topics that will be covered, and uncles, please forgive me for my terrible Urdu, but Mulana Baki will be covering. I don't even want to try this. Okay, I want to try. Khudi mein gum. There you go. But this is why I don't try Urdu. Anyways, lost within the self. That is a topic that Mulana Sayyid Zaki Baki will be covering here in the men's hall. Yeah. And in terms of the English program, Sheikh Vinay or Sheikh Abu Sumaya will be covering Islam and modernism. Just to go over some topics that Sheikh Abu Sumaya will be covering, just because they're very fascinating topics. Sorry that the text there is a bit small, but his first session will be focused on what is tradition. Secondly, the road to modernity. How did we get here? Third session, modern psychology and the modern self. The fourth session, what is feminism as a movement? And the fifth session, the secular age, what now? These programs will be starting from next Thursday onwards. This Thursday onwards, from February 9. And inshallah, we hope to see you all here. These programs will be beginning at 7 p.m. sharp with Du'a Kumail. We hope to see you all there, inshallah. 7 p.m. with Salat, inshallah. And last but not least, to bring our program to a close, I'd like to invite Brother Vahid Farashahi, I hope I got your name right this time, for our final recitation of poetry and to end off the night in high spirits. Let's invite him up with the loud salawat. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm so moved and humbled to be here tonight. Honestly, Mahdi Youth is making waves in Toronto. At Al Ain, we're seeing it, and we're seeing Mahdi Youth grow. And whenever I go into Majlis and I see so many young people, I'm really hopeful about the future, inshallah. Also, I was moved by the business minds that were sitting here. Very nice. 2 points I want to mention about that. So I run my own business for the last 4 years. I run my own company, but I also work with Alain as Director of Marketing and Alain International as Director of Marketing. 2 points I want to say is that understand what a rizq and income and revenue, the difference is. What goes in your mouth versus what's in your pocket and your account. It's very different. The money is not yours. Be very careful. Understand khums. These are things that will make your income many folds. Second point is know that you're never busy. I run my own company with almost 7 employees, but I also work with Alain, and I don't know how I do it. It's about 3 jobs almost. So Amir al-Mu'mineen did that. Amir al-Mu'mineen had lots of responsibility, but he was always with the orphans. He was always helping the poor and the needy. So always, if you want to have barakah in your time, give back to your community, to the poor, to the needy, and that's going to be your key to success, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا. Everyone together. إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله. One day Amir al-Mu'mineen was sitting. He was very busy. A mu'min from Iran, from Hamadan, came to visit him. He brought him a jar of honey with a bag of figs, and he gave them to Amir al-Mu'mineen as gifts. Amir al-Mu'mineen ordered, call the orphans, bring the orphans to me. The orphans came, they all started eating from the jug of honey all together. The people around Amir al-Mu'mineen said, why don't you stop them? Why don't you put them in cups so they can eat them? Amir al-Mu'mineen said, I do not want them to feel that they don't have a father. The father eats from the same jar as their son eats. I want them to feel like they have a father, and for a few moments not to feel like orphans. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Everywhere that I go, I am thinking of you, Mola, so that I can come to Najaf and visit you, Mola. In your love is every gain. You are the cure of my pain. Ali ya Mola Madadi. Ali ya Mola Madadi. Ali ya Mola Ali ya Mola Madadi. The love of Zahra, the soul of Muhammad Mola, the light of Islam, the sign of Allah Mola, Ali ya Mola Madadi. Everyone with hajat. Ali ya Mola Madadi. You want to go to Najaf? Bismillah. Ali ya Mola. I can't hear you, sisters. Ali ya Mola. Louder. Ali ya. Ya Ali Mola Ali Ali. 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 Ya Ali Mola. Seriously? This is your Haydari? Not the Haydari! I want this, okay? Ya Ali Mawla! 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 Ali, Ali! Ya Ali Mawla! Ya Ali Mawla! The first Imam! The first Imam! Ali, Ali! The first Imam! The last Wasi! The pious master, Ali, Ali, the pious master, Ali, Ali, Ali Madad, Ali Madad, Ali Madad, Ali Madad, Ya Ali Mawla, Ali, Ali, Ya Ali Mawla, Ya Ali Mawla, Ali, Ali, Ya Ali Mawla, the man of God, the son of Muhammad, no, the son of Mecca, the pious master, the best of all, Ali, Ali, Ya Ali Mawla, Ali, Ali, Ya Ali Mawla, Ya Ali Mawla, Ali, Ali, the love of Zahra, the soul of Muhammad, the sign of Allah, Ali, Ali, Ali Madad, Ali Madad, Ali Madad, Ali Madad. Salawat. علي حبه جنة قسيم النار والجنة وسي المصطفى حقا إمام الإنس والجن صلوات. Everyone, let's stand. We recite dua faraj, inshallah, together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى وتمتعه. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم العظم العذ العجل الأكرم بحق إمام زماننا بدم المظلوم يا الله 10 times يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وعلى محب الحسين في الدنيا والآخرة. إلهي يا حميد بحق محمد يا عالي بحق علي يا فاطر بحق فاطمة يا محسن بحق الحسن يا قديم الإحسان بحق الحسين. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakallah, brother. Thank you so much for that beautiful recitation. Just one final note on housekeeping. Dinner will be served as soon as I'm done speaking. The request is for brothers to please stay in this hall, as the dinner for the brothers will be served in the men's hall. Sisters, the dinner will be served in the ladies' hall on the other side over there. And one final request, brothers, if you could please help us stack the chairs and move them towards the back of the hall. Jazakallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.